Okay, Madam Chair, I think we have a quorum if we want to go ahead and get started with the work session. So on the work session tonight, we have a discussion that's been requested to talk about alternative trim materials in the historic district. They'll have an update on the zoning code rewrite. And then we have a few housekeeping items, and then we can go through the agenda. So we'll get started with the with the discussion on the alternative materials. So we were approached by a contractor who's here tonight. Basically, smooth finish hardy board has become extremely difficult to get here locally. And they're wishing to discuss some alternative materials that would be acceptable. And Tim Bodwin is here tonight, so I'll turn it over to him.
Hello, my name is Tim Bodwin, TBL Construction. I reached out to Josh a couple months back because I have a couple projects in the north end that are stalled that I can't get hardy plank siding smooth, and to try to find out if there's some leeway or alternatives so that I just don't have to break the rules. If you drive around, I'm not going to dime people out. It's true wood is being used by a ton of people, which is in violation of the COAs that you guys are issuing as a condition that we're only allowed to use wood and cement-based products. So that's why I approached you today. I don't want to violate any rule. I will try to be, I try to adhere to everything that I can in the historic district. We currently use hardy siding. Hardy, for one reason or another, stopped shipping to west of the Mississippi. That was probably 4 months ago, and it's now at a standstill. So that's where I started researching a little bit of the products. There is, as you guys know, True Wood and Miratech are the two composite-based. Composite wood or composite resin that is disallowed with the way that the COAs are being written. On page 84 or 87 of the guidelines, it does allow the use of composite resin wood as long as it's smooth out. And that's what's been happening, is that this is what it's shipped as, and you flip it. So a long time ago, that's just what was happening, is that you would flip it and adhere to the smooth finish. But I think over the course of the last couple of years, the COAs have been written that we're not allowed to use composite resin wood. So I'm not complaining about that at all. That's your guys' prerogative and your decision. I just am looking for, some alternatives and for some help from a contractor. Again, you can drive around the north end and pick out any project, a lot of projects. I wrote an email to Josh. There's one right on 24th. It's massive and it's all true wood. And I'm a small builder and I wanted here to the historic guidelines and your guys' direction. So I have a couple samples of, sorry, this is all I could find. This is actually true wood. And I'm going to hand another. So boral, I've been researching boral. Boral is super expensive. It's not, I'm not saying I want to use it, but it is a polyash component. It is, I think it's 70% recycled material.
You step back.
Sorry. It is made from byproducts of coal-fired facilities. So it is actually, the company is the U.S. is part of the U.S. Green Building Code or Building Council member. It's certified recycled material. And this is poly ash, and it's made from, it's recycled material from a coal-fired plant. So it actually, and then this one is, sorry, coffee stains. It was in my truck. So this one's actually hardy. And so if you look at them side by side and like touch them and feel them, and this one's only a little bit lighter, but it mirrors that. You can actually bury it below grade, and it doesn't take on water, it doesn't swell. So there's a lot of good things about this material. So that's why I'm here. So I'll hand these guys.
And Madam Chair, if you don't mind, just for a little bit of context, I can add what the guidelines say.
Okay.
So,
that'd be great.
Item number 5.7.3 says use wood or painted composite wood resin or fiber cement siding as building materials in new construction. And then in the next section about green building materials, it does say it is not appropriate to use synthetic materials which are not proven to be durable, are difficult to repair and recycle, or may employ harsh manufacturing methods. So that's the sections of the guidelines that kind of discuss alternative materials, you know, and of course the finish being smooth and not the faux wood grain. So just thought I'd throw that in.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm 100% for, I like smooth because I build in the north end, so it's pretty important. Wood, as you know, I'm a builder. Wood is super tough to deal with. It is, yes, it's long-term, but you also have to use oil-based primer. I would argue oil-based primer is not a environmentally conscious product. Wood, you're cutting down trees, which I'm not 100% in agreement with. So I think there's got to be, and availability is really the reason why I'm here, to try to get some answers or at least some feedback as to what is suggested. We 100% could go with all wood-based products if that's the decision, but the current guidelines do allow composite resin. It's just under the COAs that have been written over the last couple of years, it's been disallowed, which I'm not mad at. I'm just, now it's really a problem because of availability. So that's why I'm coming to you, honestly, is availability issues at this point. So.
Do you know what the warranty difference is between that product and the hardy board?
So a hardy is 50 years. I don't know, but if you give me about 5 minutes, I could probably get it pretty easy just on their website. If not, if I can't answer that tonight, I could get it to Josh.
Yeah, that'd be.
Because I could call, the reason why I found it is because I was in Portland, in Salem, and there was a company similar to Franklin Building Supply. They had used Boral on the front. So I went in to chat with them because it looked like hardy to me. So that's why I was asking them. It's super expensive. It's not it's probably 3 times the amount as hardy. So it's not cheap. And hardy's probably double. I'm throwing numbers out there, but I think it's double than like a true wood. But I guess my take is I respect the guidelines. People are using true wood, honestly, around full wrap windows. It's so I wrap all my windows with cedar. So I put 2x4 cedar. Oftentimes we put a sill on the bottom so the windows stand back. True wood's being used where they're flush, so it doesn't look historic. I typically will use true wood prior to the last 2 years, but now I only we use it on the corners, the bottom bands, and like fascia. Everything else is siding, either milled to match or hardy because you can still get hardy smooth siding, which is crazy to me why they're not making trim pieces for their product.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Koski. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I got a few comments. First of all, I want to say, Tim, thank you for coming by. Tim did reach out to me a while back, being in the building materials business that I am, and the building industry, which he is. He reached out to me with some of these concerns, and I suggested he come, I gave him Josh's number and suggested he go to Josh and bring some samples by. So first of all, Tim, I really appreciate you coming by and doing this. You touched on a whole number of things that we could probably have work sessions on really as a commission. Of note is enforcement. If people are using it, and you and I know people are, and they're not supposed to be, and they shouldn't be. It's in their COAs, and then it's a matter of how we get those reported, how we enforce it. So we've made some great strides as a commission, but we have ways to go on that. So I'm going to leave that discussion for another time. You do talk about wood, and really wood is what was used in our period of significance. That's what trim was. And it still is the most renewable resource. It still is the one of the resources that you've mentioned, or the products you mentioned, that is repairable. I'm not a painter, but I would disagree with the oil-based primer. There's some benefits to oil-based primer for sure, but I think that probably could be argued. And wood's available right now. And from a building material side, you name the product, there's extended lead times. If it's wood, if it's hardy, if it's windows, if it's roofing, everything's a mess right now because of supply chain. So I understand those struggles, but I don't know that the brand Hardy is the only source for a cement material. The other comment I have is, one of the reasons a fiber cement material, I believe we allow, is that actually fiber cement was a material used historically. There was siding that made out of that material. So from an historical perspective, that is a material that was used during the period of significance. So we believe that to be okay. On the trim side, I actually disagree with using anything besides wood. We have wood, it's available, it's renewable, it's easy to work with. And you can get it. So my question for you, Tim, is why not use wood?
So I have a couple of things. Yeah, we had a discussion. I appreciate you telling me to go to Josh, and that's why I'm here. And so just to have that discussion, I'm not, I will try to abide by but every rule that I can within the guidelines. I mean, I have a house lifted off the ground at 14th Street, and it's trying to save a house that you guys denied for demolition. So I absolutely admire and try to adhere, but I'm just looking for, a little bit of leeway, and maybe some look at, maybe Boral's out there. And I think if you compared materials, if you held that, I think you would probably, they mirror each other, and that's readily available. There are two cement-based products, Hardy and Allura. Allura, you cannot even get right now for whatever reason. And then there's Hardy, who's no longer shipping west of the Mississippi. So we could probably, argue about wood's fine. It's super expensive as well, but the maintenance for a homeowner is super tough. I mean, if you drive around the north end, you could see paint peeling all over. So that would be my argument against just use of wood. I do like hardy and I do like cement-based products because they retain wood or they retain paint super easy. When you paint them, they look smooth. I mean, I like it a ton, but just availability. So I just came with Boral just to have you guys feel it, look at it, and kind of compare it. It's not like I'm looking to cheap out because it's, a lot more expensive than the other products. It's just availability. And you touched on it, Mr. Koski. It's enforcement is a big issue. I absolutely support this, the demolition piece that you guys just passed if somebody demos, and I support those types of enforcement pieces. It's just siding is not something that's being enforced right now, unfortunately, but that's why I came and brought Boral to you guys. So.
Thank you, Tim. I did actually reach out to some other contractors knowing that we were having this work session. So I don't know if anyone is in the room there or if anyone's online that has any other comments, but Madam Chair, I did reach out to others to say, hey, come on, we got a good work session here. And Tim's got some stuff to show us. So if anyone's there, I'll let you handle that, but that's all I had, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Just as a clarification, we're talking about all siding, not just trim. Is that correct?
It's purely trim right now.
Okay.
It's a weird thing, but Hardy has stopped manufacturer or sending trim west of the Mississippi.
Okay, just the trim. Okay.
Trim, so bottom bands, middle bands, mid bands or belly bands, your fascia, all that kind of stuff. So yes, you could use wood. I think we already allow on new construction, we already allow alternative material, whether it be a metal roof, they allow that on new construction. And maybe there's some leeway on new construction versus remodeling. I don't know. I guess that's why I'm here.
Okay.
And Madam Chair, in the interest of time, we do have one gentleman in the audience and then
Sure.
one online also, I think, that would like
Great.
to speak.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good evening. My name's Doug Cobb. I'm a general contractor and architect here in Boise. I currently have 2 new builds and 3 remodels in the north end. We are running into the same problem with material. The one thing that I will say about Hardy board, smooth face, it is probably one of their lines that has the least demand and the least production on it. They manufacture more of a textured material. Really the only, when I've talked with Franklin Building Supply, really the only area they sell the smooth face is for the historic district. With the demand that we have in our construction industry right now, they've slowed the production of their low demand products. So we don't have trim. And I've run into problems on my projects where we've run out of smooth face hardy board plank. And so we wait. It will be a continued issue in the north end as the demand on people wanting to remodel their homes in the north end because there's nowhere to build. And obviously the cost to buy a new home is high. So, I think we're just looking for alternative solutions fairly quickly, not to have breakout sessions and, prolong this. So, I would ask that maybe there's a short-term solution where you allow a textured hardy board product till the industry can come back to, full swing and get the supply chain back in check. So that's about all that I'd have to say. Thank you.
So what are you looking at, the results of this?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, what was that?
What is supposed to be the outcome of this discussion?
Just direction from the commission on appropriate materials under that section, the guidelines about wood composites. It does reference synthetic materials that are harmful not being appropriate. So I think, Tim and others were looking for some direction on what could be approved. And I think we were looking to you as well.
Okay. And I know there's one more person that wanted to speak online. I guess what's hard for me is I hear what's being said, but I still don't know kind of how these different things compare and how you would maybe approve one or two things and not everything. Really helpful if we had some sort of, and it might take a little while to put it together, but a chart of options, and then it maybe compares them. And so you could understand the differences between them and what is approved, especially maybe the materials and how they compared with what's in our guidelines, as well as warranty information and durability, those kinds of things would be really helpful. I don't know if that's something somebody could put together and provide us to take a look at. I mean, I know this is an immediate need, so I'm not sure, waiting a whole month and then looking at it again is going to help anybody, but it would be helpful. And then how long is that for? If it's temporary, is there a recommendation? Do we say, okay, for the next year, you can use these products? And then we're going to say, we'll reevaluate then. And if it's, back to normal, we can stop doing that. I mean, I guess there needs to be some sort of parameters in my mind to this. I don't know what-
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I have a comment
Go
on
ahead.
that. We have approved materials available for use. You can use wood. That's actually preferred. You can get it. We do have smooth fiber concrete based material available in this market. It's not hardy board, but Allure is one that was mentioned, and it is available. So we kind of get this request every year or two, it seems. And at the root of it, it seems to come down to what is the least expensive material, and that's what's desired. Obviously, there's some material shortage issues going on, but that's across the industry, and I don't think it affects the compliance that we currently have in the C of A's. This is my opinion. You can get wood. You can get smooth fiber-based cement from Allure. I don't think we need, my opinion is I don't think we need to make any change at all right now. You can get it. Lead times are longer. Maybe it's more money, but that is not something that is something that C of A is about. So I personally, as a commission, I think we should have some more educational work sessions on the building material side to really help give the city staff a better guidance and make things easier for the applicants and make things easier for Mr. Cobb and Tim and all the builders. But I do disagree with them both. You can get material. So.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yep.
I would love to hear from the other contractor who is online right now. But before that, and perhaps maybe this contractor can answer this question. I would like to know, as Commissioner Koski is bringing up, that he believes it seems to be a cost issue between the two materials, not so much a availability issue. I would like to know from a contractor what the cost difference between the two materials is, meaning wood and the hardy in question. And additionally, my personal thought, we are in a pandemic. This is historic in its own right. And I think that allowing use of an additional material for, like you said, in a certain number of years, a certain parameter might make sense in this situation, because as one of the contractors mentioned, it's near impossible to build anywhere. And the cost of remodeling in general is astronomical on top of, material availability and inflation. And I think we really should be sensitive to that. But I would love to know what a cost comparison roughly between the two materials is, and I would love to hear from that other contractor.
Can I, sorry, the other contractor. I just want to put my thoughts on the table that, I mean, part of this problem is that we are not requiring applicants to repair rather than replace their siding, repair their windows rather than replace their windows. So if we don't require people to repair things and they do full sale replacement of their siding, this is an issue. Now you just require people to repair. There's wood available, they can repair it. That's just my 2 cents. I agree with Commissioner Koski. Wood's available, they can use it. I actually don't like hardy board because it's never the right size, it's never the right reveal for these historic structures. So I think they should have to use wood.
Madam Chair, Noah Richter, a former member of this commission, is online, I think wants to talk.
Great, thank you.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Noah Richter, owner RCH Construction. We do an extensive amount of work in the North End, Boise. Just first of all, I'd like to say thank you to Mr. Cobb and Mr. Bodwin for coming out and discussing this issue. And trust me, I'm right there with Mr. Cobb, Mr. Bodwin, as far as current availability for hardy. I've been having long conversations with my material suppliers over the past. It's not something that's been a surprise by any means. It's not like this came apart, 2-3 weeks ago or even 6 months ago. This has been an ongoing issue with hardy since early 2021, and was even kind of starting to poke its head up late 2020 as far as hardy's manufacturing capabilities in America, also in Australia. I mean, they shut everything down in Australia. They shut down 2 plants, one in South Carolina, and then stopped production on building another plant in Alabama. So the availability of hardy right now is really tough. And like both Mr. Cobb and Mr. Bowden said, the smooth hardy, specifically the trim materials are, you can't even get them because they're not even manufacturing anymore. Smooth panel and smooth siding, it is available. We can get it, but the allocations to west of the Mississippi or west of the Rocky Mountains is a little bit more difficult. So those lead times are going to be considerably longer. We're talking, in between 8, 12, maybe 16 weeks on the outside. But if you plan ahead far enough, you can get it. As far as other products that could possibly be, considered, Commissioner Weaver, obviously, a lot more information is going to have to be provided as far as, what those materials are, what the warranties are, what those materials look like. Allura is a good option. Speaking with my material supplier over the past week, lead times on Allura is anywhere between 4 and 6 weeks right now. And that is a cementitious-based, a fiber cement-based siding material. And it does come smooth, and it does have all of the trims available with it as well. I completely agree with Commissioner Koski that wood is a very much preferred product for cladding homes, especially in our historic districts. And it is available. The last 2 projects that we're doing recently, one on Harrison Boulevard and one on the corner of 10th and Thatcher, we have used clear vertical grain cedar as our exterior cladding material on all the siding and on all the trims. We definitely do not use oil-based primers. We use a water-based bonding primer, which encapsulates all the tenons so you don't get any bleed through when you go to paint the home. So obviously that is a fantastic choice. So in my 2 cents, yes, there are materials that are available on the market right now. I think it would be really a terrible move for the commission to consider true wood as even an option. It is an inferior product. The warranty on it is a 30-year limited warranty. And when they say limited, you better read the fine print and you better install it and protect it exactly how the manufacturer wants it, or else it will fail. You see it all over the valley. You see it in all of the major home developments all across Boise and Meridian and Nampa and Caldwell, because that's all they use. And there's a reason why they use it. I mean, it gets the job done fast, it's inexpensive, and it's efficient. But never is it installed per exact manufacturer specifications. There's always going to be some sort of hiccup in that. And for our historic districts, it's not the right product. There are other products, like Mr. Bodwin mentioned Burrell. That's a fantastic product. It does come at a cost premium, but it is a fantastic product. It truly shows what a manufactured product can do, as far as warranty and lifetime and how it performs in weather. So I think, having the conversation about allowing different types of products and maybe not specific manufacturers, Hardy, they kind of ran that kind of niche market for so long that everybody's like, oh, it's like when people used to talk about snowboarding, they called it Burton boarding, because Burton was the main manufacturer. Well, Hardy was the main manufacturer of cement-based type of siding materials. And so everybody just kind of defaulted to Hardy. But if we can entertain different manufacturers like Allura or Burrell or another manufacturer that we can come up with and do a little bit of comparison to what Hardy is, I think there's an opportunity to come up with some different siding materials and exterior cladding materials that would be more than acceptable in historic districts.
Thank you, Noah. Well, I don't know how we're going to come to some sort of conclusion today. So,
Madam Chair, I would just suggest there isn't a clear consensus. So I would say that status quo, and then some future research into further materials, we could present them. Like you said, come up with some warranties, some environmental impacts, things like that. But, I guess my recommendation would be, if there isn't a clear consensus tonight, that status quo would rule.
Yep. I agree. I think that's the way to go for now.
It's the public hearing is still open, Madam Chair. I would just remind you, we have another work session still to hold. So just keep it brief, but yeah.
This is Doug Cobb again. So I guess my only comment that I would make is, if the commissioners, and if there's a strong feeling to use wood, then that should be the only product that we should be allowed, because we do have different price points and we all have budgets that we're trying to meet with our clients. So if we put together a project with a budget using a material that's approved like Hardy board, and we run into these issues, and then we're being told to use wood, which has I'm assuming a much higher price point, it can be a deal breaker, right? And that isn't just something you spring on your client, right? So you have to give us options that are approved to use, that, or have some type of equality to them. Because I think if we're using, cement board or cement-based products like a Hardy board, if it's more cost effective, then of course, the customer wants to use it because it's easier on their budget. And when we run into problems like this and we have to come up with alternatives, and we say, okay, hey, look, our only alternative is to use wood, we've got to come back and then request more money from our customer. It's a difficult conversation to have, but it is an issue. But if those are the approved materials, people are using Hardy board because it's more cost effective, right? So take that into consideration, I guess, when you're having these conversations. I think it's a pretty valid one. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, I think we're ready to move on.
Good evening, commissioners. For the record, Andrea Tuning. I am a comprehensive planner with the City of Boise's Planning and Development staff. We visited with you approximately a year ago to share with you the kickoff of the zoning code rewrite. We also came back and visited with you approximately 6 months ago to give you an update on Module 1, which was the first component of the zoning code rewrite. Today, we'd like to go over where we are today, which is just a brief overview of what that schedule looks like, as well as Module 2, that second component of our zoning code rewrite process, and then talk to you a little bit about our community engagement plan as we move forward. As we're talking about Module 2 and the rewrite process, we visited with you earlier on, approximately 6 months ago, about Module 1. Module 1 ultimately created the zoning districts, the overlay districts, and all of the allowed uses within the zoning code. We're now moving forward with some of those development and design standards, much of what we've been talking about today. So we would talk about building heights, setbacks, lot sizes, anything that you will actually make a development look and feel different, make it feel pedestrian oriented, those types of things. And so Module 2 really has a lot of that meat that creates all of those features and elements that create what we're looking for as a city. Once we're done with Module 2, we'll move on to Module 3, which is really going to talk about how developments are approved, how they're reviewed, and how we can appeal and who can participate in each one of those processes. So just to let you know, at the end of January, we released Module 2 to the public, and we are currently going through a large citywide outreach process in which we would encourage you to participate if you have an opportunity to. So that will extend through the month of April. As part of that, we will be touching bases with a number of regional locations throughout the city so that we geographically visit each one of the areas of our city. We will also be doing a public survey, as well as some large general community conversations as well. As we're doing that community outreach as a staff, we will also be looking at Module 3 content with our citywide advisory committee as well. So we'll have multiple things that are happening concurrently so that we can then in turn release Module 3 once we get to the spring of this year. And so when we look at where we're going, once we get that Module 3 released, we want to go ahead and do some continued engagement. Make sure that we have heard from our community. We'll consolidate each one of those modules, 1, 2, and 3, into a large document, which we'll call our consolidated plan. And then we will go ahead and ask for some additional public outreach and some public input in regard to that, with our end goal of July 2023 for a finished document, which we can begin the review and approval process. So we will take it to planning and zoning first for a formal recommendation, and then move on to City Council for final review and approval. So we do want to go over some of those Module 2 changes just to give you a high-level overview of what's happening. And I'm going to turn this over to my colleague, Deanna Dupuy, and she's going to walk you through that. Then you're also going to hear from Lindsay Moser about our community outreach. And then if you have any questions, then we'll be available for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, commissioners. So as Andrea said, I'm going to walk through our proposed changes. And if you had a chance to look at the document, it's a large document. So these are just 8 of the high level changes that we've pulled out and that we're communicating to the public. But there's a lot of nitty gritty in there that I would encourage you to look at as well. Our first one is that we are updating our dimensional requirements and specifically our minimum lot sizes. So this would apply to the zone districts that the historic guidelines cover. So we're proposing smaller minimum lot sizes for most residential zones. And we've seen that smaller lot sizes really increase housing types and different types of products, neighborhood income diversity, and then reducing sprawl. Additionally, we're proposing to remove the density calculation so the dense dwelling units per acre. And instead, what we'll be doing to measure or control development is really looking at design and performance criteria to assess impact and to determine how buildings should be built. So instead of using the limit of, say, 10 dwelling units per acre, which this picture shows really well, it's going to cap a number of units that could be built. But even if you met all of the setback requirements, the height, you could actually fit 10 units there. So you'll see the buildings look identical. The only difference that we're seeing from the outside is additional parking, and that we would allow that. Our next proposed change is that we are adding neighborhood protection standards. So this is, we don't have this in our code currently, but if you're in a lower density residential zone and you abut up to what we're proposing as new mixed use zones, you would be guaranteed some required additional setback, rules about lighting, vehicle uses. So providing some of that transition between neighborhoods. We're also expanding our incentives, so including a new incentive for sustainable and resilient development. So providing a parking reduction for energy and water saving improvements. And this is really to help make some progress. We recognize that some of these improvements may be expensive, so helping us to make progress on our climate action goals. This one is fun for our public, but what we're proposing is requiring only one off-street parking spot for single-family, duplex, triplex, and fourplexes. We've seen that that's been a historic way that the city has developed over time until we added the 2 units or 2 cars spots per unit. And really what we're looking at is 41% of Boise residents only have 1 car or fewer. And we believe that, it's not the most efficient use of land, and by reducing the required parking, we can have a more compact development. We are also proposing that we would expand the building and site design standards to all new development across the city. So this is the design review guidelines. And with the thought that all of our cities, not just specific streets, or all areas of our city, not just specific streets, should be high quality. And then this change and the next change are adding new sections to our code, which we did not have before, which was one is a chapter on access and connectivity. So we know there's a lot of best practices in site design that ensure more efficient and safe circulation around a site. So spelling out those requirements. And it's really a way to make sure that we're making progress on those safety and efficient mobility goals that we have in Blueprint Boise. And then, and I know this was touched on a bit with maintenance, but adding a new section in our code that's going to require site improvements to be kept in good condition even after it's received approval or after occupancy. So providing our staff some ability to enforce maintenance. And Lindsay will cover the community engagement.
Good evening, commissioners. Now I will present our Module 2 Community Engagement Plan. A few things that we learned from Module 1 is that we just really need to take our time. Through Module 2, it's a large document, over 400 pages, and make sure to focus on those quality conversations within the community. So in advance of releasing Module 2, we put together a couple documents for the community that are available on our website. The first one was how to read Module 2. Again, we know that not everybody will pick up over 400-page document. So this is just a couple helpful tips on how to read Module 2, maybe some common questions and chapters that might be of importance to the public, and then also a fun little guide throughout Module 2. Dimensions are mentioned a lot, and we understand that the general public might not understand what 20 feet might be. So we would say, okay, when we say 20 feet, think the length of a whitewater raft. When we say 5 feet, think the length of a mountain bike, kind of keeping that Idaho focused. The second document is the Module 2 executive summary, covering the main changes that Deanna just went over. Gives a little bit of history, where we're going, and then some of the reasons for some of these proposed changes as well. The third material is the conversion map. This is an interactive story map on using the GIS system on our website. You can zoom in, zoom out. And so on the left, you'll see the proposed zoning districts. And then on the right, you'll see the current zoning district. So anywhere within this map, you could type in your own address. You could type in any address that you know, zoom in, click on it, and it'll be all color coordinated and give you all of the details on those zoning districts. We started community outreach just a few weeks ago. We thought it was important to head out to each of the neighborhood specific planning areas so we could have conversations focused on those areas and where they might see the most change. So far, we've had a couple of them, and we also tied in a couple conversations with housing and zoning code. In our wintertime housing outreach, zoning code continued to be a topic that came up within the two. So we thought we wanted to bridge the gap and have those together. These are only the outward facing events. We're also working with a lot of more technical groups, ULI, American Institute of Architects, Idaho Walk Bike Alliance are just a few examples of other presentations that we're giving throughout the city as well. One of the larger things that we wanted to do was really connect Module 2 to our why. We know we have a lot of action plans within the city and really trying to make it more a cohesive, holistic conversation. A couple of the items that we have, as we know, are the housing needs analysis. We have new climate action roadmap and goals. We have a cross disability task force recommendation, pathways master plan. And again, really tying those all together. And as you saw in the examples that Deanna gave, we try to tie those in. For each of the neighborhood planning areas, we wanted to give a more visual idea to the public on what this might look like in their neighborhood. So within each of the neighborhoods, we worked with a local architect to provide a commercial example and a residential example. So we provide a picture of what the area looks like now, and then it redesigned and what it can look like with redevelopment following the zoning code changes. We then provide call outs kind of highlighting here's 35 feet height, here's the setbacks, here's the pathways, street trees, etc. We also just released a survey last week. We have a couple different surveys. We have a community focused survey, really breaking down over the 8 major changes that Deanna went to, and then asking for feedback from the community. We also translated that into Spanish. And then we have a technical user survey, people that really are using the zoning code day in and day out pretty much, that might be able to provide more concrete feedback to us as well. And that will be open through April 10th. And that is the conclusion of our presentation today. We have a lot of outreach events coming up. We encourage you guys. We have some on Zoom. We have some in person. We've had some of our other commissioners and city council members present as well, just to hear what the community is saying on Module 2. So with that, any questions or comments for us?
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Well, thank you very much, all of you, for your presentation. It was great.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of housekeeping items, and then we can go through the agenda real quick. I did want to introduce our new senior historic planner. It's with us tonight, Nathan Hallam. I believe that some of you may have met him in various workings. He is active in the preservation community in Boise, and will be a really fantastic asset to the city. So super happy to have him on board. He will become a familiar face at these hearings.
Great. Thank you. Welcome.
And then another little quick item. Some of you may have seen or heard about an illegal house move on McKinley Street in the East End. I know I've heard from a lot of people about it. So I just wanted to give you a quick rundown of what's going to happen. So the new premature alterations ordinance that was presented to you probably back in November and then was passed by City Council in December and January is in effect. What that does is it requires us to prepare a premature alterations report on illegal work, such as that house move that did take place. It started to take place without any permitting. We will be preparing that report, working with the applicant and neighborhood association through the requirements of the ordinance to negotiate to a solution. We will bring that solution to this commission. Timing wise, it just depends how quickly we can get that done. It may be the March hearing or the April hearing. There is the opportunity for the 6-month delay in code. I don't know that having a house cut in half for 6 months benefits anybody, right? We certainly want to go through the proper procedure, but I think getting a premature alterations report to you with some recommended mitigation more quickly than 6 months is beneficial in this situation. So you will be seeing that come forward.
Great.
I want to make sure you're aware of that. And then the last thing, we'll just go through the agenda real quick. It's probably easiest to say what we're not going to hear. It's a robust agenda tonight, or what we would propose to not hear. Item number 3 has withdrawn their application, so we will remove that from the agenda. We would propose item number 7 for consent. That's at 2309 West Ellis. We would propose number 9 for consent at 425 Pueblo. And we would propose item number 13 for consent. The applicant is in agreement with the conditions on 2637 Ellis. So with any concerns on those items?
Can you repeat what the last consent item was? I missed it. Sorry.
Number 13, 2637 West Ellis.
And then is it correct that number 10 was deferred?
I'm sorry, yes, number 10 is deferred. That was in the packet. There was a deferral memo.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do we have to, when something's withdrawn, do we put that, do we just approve that somehow to be withdrawn, or we just ignore it?
Madam Chair, you can just remove it from the agenda.
Okay.
The application is withdrawn by action of the applicant by stating that to us.
Okay.
And with that, give you 4 minutes to catch your breath and we'll get started. Madam Chair, if you're ready, we can go ahead and get started.
Yep, great. Okay, good evening, everybody. Today is the 28th of February, 2022. This is the scheduled time and place for the Historic Preservation Commission hearing. I am Chairperson Weaver, and I now call the meeting to order. Christina, could you please call the roll?
Weaver,
Here?
Montoto,
Here.
Malloy,
Here.
Pape,
Aye, here, sorry.
Kintai. Otter.
Here.
Koski. Koski.
Here. Did you hear me?
2 absent.
Great, thank you. Have all the commissioners had a chance to review the minutes from the January 31st, 2022 meeting? Does anyone have any comments or changes to the minutes? Okay, hearing none, I will now take a motion on the January 31st, 2022 minutes.
Madam Chair, excuse me, this is Commissioner Koski. I'm sorry, I didn't get to the button quick enough. Do I have a comment before we have a motion?
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Koski.
The item number, look here, that item, the denial that we have on our meeting. Maybe I'd have this question for Josh. Tell you what, I'll recuse my question for now. I'll take it away. I'll comment on it when we get to the denial. Thank you.
Okay,
Madam Chair,
yes,
I move to approve the minutes from the January 22nd, 2022 hearing.
thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Christina, could you please call the roll?
Weaver,
Aye.
Montoto,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Pape,
Aye.
Otter,
Aye.
Koski.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. There's currently one item up for deferral tonight. That is item DRH 22-00022, Amy Algier at 1402 North 22nd Street. Is there any member of the audience wishing to speak on this item? No one online, okay. Okay, if there's no one wishing to speak, then I'll take a motion on the deferral.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I move to defer item number DRH 22-0000022 to the next month's hearing.
thank
Correct,
you.
yes.
Commissioner Montoto, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, please call the roll.
Weaver,
Aye.
Montoto,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Pape,
Aye.
Otter.
Aye.
Koski.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Great, thank you. And tonight we also have 3 possible items for the consent agenda, beginning with item number 7, DRH 21-00518, Paul Hoffman. Is the applicant present? Thank you. Are you in agreement with the recommendations and conditions of approval? Is there any opposition to this matter? Okay. Is there anyone present tonight wishing to testify against this matter? Okay, seeing none and based on the representation of the applicant and lack of opposition, item number DRH 21-00518 will be placed on the consent agenda. We also have item number 9, DRH 22-00018, Beth Lassen at 425 West Pueblo Street. Is the applicant present? Thank you. Are you in agreement with the recommended conditions of approval? Was there any opposition to this matter? Okay, there anyone present wishing to testify against this matter? Okay, seeing none, based on the representation of the applicant and lack of opposition, item DRH 22-00018 will be placed on the consent agenda. Our last item is item number 13, DRH 22-00036, Richard George at 2637 West Ellis Avenue. Is the applicant present? Yes, thank you. Are you in agreement with the recommended conditions of approval? Okay, thank you. Is there any opposition to this matter? Great. Is there anyone present here wishing to testify against the matter? Okay, seeing none, based on the representation of the applicant and lack of opposition, item DRH 22-00036 will be placed on the consent agenda. I then move that the consent agenda and all items on the consent agenda be approved, subject to all the findings and conclusions and conditions of approval agreed upon for each application. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Christina, can you please call the roll?
Weaver,
Aye.
Montoto,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Pape,
Aye.
Otter,
Aye.
Husky,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Great, thank you. Before we move to our regular agenda, I just wanted to mention that we do have one item that was withdrawn, DRH 21-00461. So if you're here for that item, it will not be heard tonight. Okay, we'll now move on to the remaining items on the agenda. The first one to be heard tonight is DRH 21-00471. Can we please have the report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is a adoption of revised findings for an item that was denied at last month's hearing. I think I know where Commissioner Koski was going with his comments on the minutes. We do have some changes to the findings that were included in the packet. So in the findings in the packet, we did kind of condense some of the findings stated in the motion, combined all of the items under 5.2, 5.3, and 5.4. I understand that there is a desire to break those out individually. So we will reference in its entirety 5.1.2b, 5.2, 5.25, 5.2.2a, 5.3.1, 5.3.2, 5.3.6, 5.4.3, 5.4.8, and 5.5.12 as the reasons for decision for denial for that project. So we will revise finding number 3 in that attached findings memo to reflect all of those individual sections.
Great, thank you. We don't need to make a motion on that.
Actually, Madam Chair, I believe you do. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
With those changes,
Okay.
if you are in agreement.
Great. Commissioner Koski, are you in agreement with those changes?
Madam Chair, and Josh, yes, I'm agreeing with those changes. And with that, I'll make a motion to include those changes in the ratification of findings for DRH 21-00471.
Great. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Malloy. Can you please call the roll?
Weaver,
Aye.
Montoto,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Pape,
Aye.
Otter,
Aye.
Husky,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. The second item we have to be heard tonight is item number 2, DRH 21-00517. Can you please have the report?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Again, another adoption of findings for denial for DRH 21-00517 at 1706 North 8th Street. I did not receive feedback on this one that the findings needed any changes, but I would certainly be open to any comments from commissioners.
Are there any comments?
No comments.
Nope. Do we need to?
Again, just a motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have an emotion to approve the the findings?
I motion to approve DRH 21-00461.
I think it's 517.
Oh,
Yep.
sorry, I'll take that back. I motion to approve DRH 21-00517 and the ratifications for denial.
There's a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Christina, would you please call the roll?
Beaver,
Aye.
Montoto,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Abe,
Aye.
Otter,
No.
Husky,
Aye.
5 in favor, 1 opposed. Motion carries.
Okay. Thank you. The next item we have was deferred from the January 31st hearing. It is DRH 21-00472 Annie Howe at 1301 North 18th Street. Can we have the staff report, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you mentioned, this item was on last month's agenda. There was a request for more information made to the applicant in the form of some revised drawings, some additional materials on what the existing garage consisted of, and then also to include the historic survey in the packet. So just as a refresher, this property is located on the northwest corner of Brumbach and 18th Street. And the applicant has requested to expand an existing single-story garage. They would add on to the side of it and create a 1.5-story structure with a full 2-car garage and some storage above. Again, there were some details requested in terms of the garage design from the applicant. So they did provide some revised perspectives that are in your packet, detailing the design of the structure and the materials. The brick 1-story portion on the side of the garage in this view would be that existing 1-story garage, and they have provided some photos. There are more in the packet, but this was kind of one that was head-on of the existing garage. We also included the historic survey for the property in the packet, which did not make mention of the garage for the commission's review. With that, the applicant is present tonight, is ready to answer questions about the design. And with that, I would stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions for staff? All right. Okay, and the applicant is present. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record. You will have 20 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Good evening, commissioners. This is Ann Howie. At the last meeting, you asked for more details of what the garage would look like. The existing garage is all brick, and the portion of the garage that encompasses the existing garage, just a sec, I'm trying to look for some documents here. At the same time, I can't do 2 things at once. Just a second. Okay. The brick that will be encompassed by the addition will be reused on the addition, which will make for a nicely thought out addition to the garage. The sandstone window sills will also be preserved and used on the new windows. The addition will also delineate from the original garage with a gabled roof instead of a hipped roof, plus the addition walls are taller. This will allow historians to tell there was an addition. If someone wanted to return the garage back to the original, they could, because all the original exterior material will be there, the brick and the sandstone on the windowsills. There's some additional photos in the packet. I would like to know if the commissioners got a chance to go and see the garage from the alley. If Josh could pull up those additional videos. There's, or sorry, not videos, photos. There's 2 that are taken in the alley, one from facing north and one facing south. And there's 2 photos taken from the public right of way. And as you can see, you can't see the garage. In one photo from the public right of way, you can see the neighbor's garage. It's kind of a greenish color. The addition will be about that tall. You can also see that there's a big pine tree in the, yeah, that's looking south. There's also a big pine tree in the property owner's yard, which will obscure your view from the addition. There's the big pine tree. And that's what you can see from the public right of way. You can't even see the garage. But you can also tell from the pictures taken in the alley how tight it is to get into the garage. For one, the garage door is not large enough. And the backup space is so tight with the garage across the street that you need a larger door in order to maneuver your car into the garage. Malloy, last week, she mentioned that garages were talked about in the historical guidelines. So I looked it up. The 2.1.4 that she was referencing is for the Warm Springs district. That is on page 7 and 8 of the guidelines. For the North End district, which starts on page 15, on page 16, it says under 2.4.4 is generally appropriate to access new driveways, accessory dwellings, and garages from the alley. And that's the only thing that I could find that talked about garages, other than setbacks and stuff like that. And the owners sent me an email that they wanted me to read to you. So Bill and Carol say, to the Historical Preservation Commissioners, we would like to extend the current garage on our property to make it usable. We cannot currently park a car in the garage. The opening is too narrow to allow us to pull into the garage. In addition, the alley is narrow, requiring a much larger opening than currently exists for a car to make the turn into the garage. We think it is appropriate for a house that is 4,200 square feet to have the capacity to park 2 cars in the garage, plus a little extra room for storage of bikes, sporting equipment, lawn equipment, etc. This is consistent with the design of most of the houses in the neighborhood. The design is intended to match the existing house and preserve the original character and design of the garage in the house. We will reuse the brick for the current garage. Thank you so much for your consideration. Do you have any questions?
Are there any questions for the applicant or staff? Okay, great. Thank you very much for your presentation. It's the Registered Neighborhood Association here to testify. They're not here. Okay. Okay, great. Are there any last questions for staff or the applicant? Hearing none. Applicant, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal if you'd like to take that time.
Okay. I just want you to know that I love the North End and I really would like to preserve as much as we can. And we are still making history. So I know that homes have had additions or changes to them, 75 years ago, and now that's part of the history of the house. And so as long as we're thoughtful about what we do, we can preserve and make beautiful new history. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, I will now close the public portion of the hearing and consider a motion or discussion.
I would make a motion to approve DRH 21-004472 based on staff's analysis and with the findings contained within the staff report.
Okay, a motion was made by Commissioner Otter. Is there a second?
I would second.
Okay, Commissioner Montoto, second. Christina, can you please call the roll?
Madam Chair, I just would.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I would like to offer discussion and mostly just a comment back to the applicant. We asked for more information in our last meeting and more details, and I just want to thank the applicant for doing that for us and helping us see a better picture of what's there. And I hope to see more projects from her in the future. So thank you.
Yes, I agree with that. Thank you very much. Any other comments?
I will not be supporting this application tonight because as a preservationist, we look at buildings that are individually eligible for listing. We look at the landscape features, we look at garages, we look at carriage houses, all those things. So out of my background and what I believe, I will not be supporting this application.
Thank you, Commissioner Malloy. Any other comments? Okay, Christina, can you please call the roll?
Weaver,
Aye.
Montoto,
Aye.
Malloy,
No.
Pape,
Aye.
Otter,
Aye.
Koski,
Aye.
motion carries.
Great, thank you. Okay, we will now go on to the next item on our agenda, which is item number 5, DRH 21-00506, Greg Bauer, with 1614 North 23rd Street. Can we have the staff report, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The applicant at 1614 North 23rd Street has applied to construct a second-story addition on an existing detached garage on property in R1CH zone. It is an expanded North End Historic District, and the home's classification is non-contributing. The property is located near Bella Street, north of Hazel, and on 23rd Street near Bella. So the site plan, the existing residence fronts onto 23rd Street with the existing detached garage back on the alley. It is a side entry garage with a 0-foot setback along the alley, and then the required 5-foot setback along the side property line. The existing garage is a concrete block structure with a simple gabled roof, approximately 19 feet to the peak. It does have 2 separate garage doors on that side entry, which faces north, and then some minimal windows and a man door. The applicant proposed to construct a full addition onto the top of the structure. It would make the garage a full 2-story structure by our definitions. Approximately 23 feet 8 inches to the peak. They would add some stairs to access the living space above and add a prominent roof overhang that kind of encapsulates that stairway with some exposed rafter tails. In reviewing the application, we did find that with the lack of adjacent 2-story garages on the alley, we felt a 1.5-story structure was more appropriate, and have included conditions of approval for the applicant to reduce the height and mass of the addition to a 1.5 stories. As a reminder, a 1.5 stories structure would have a second story that's contained primarily within the roof volume. And it would meet 18 feet to the midpoint of the roof, not the peak. So when we talk about building heights, we do measure to the midpoint. And we need to meet that with that second floor primarily in the roof volume. With that, we do recommend approval of the application. Again, here's the existing cinder block or concrete block garage on the alley. But we do recommend approval of the application with conditions.
Great. Thank you. Is the applicant present? Thank you. Please come forward and state your name and address up here at the microphone. Okay, great. Yep, come right here and state your name and address, please. No.
I'm gonna lose my voice going into this.
No, and you do have 20 minutes and you don't have to use all the time yourself. You can split it up amongst others that you like to do.
Well, if I say anything wrong, my wife might, come up here and correct me. So we'll go with that. Thank you guys for having us here tonight. We appreciate your time and listening to us in the midst of all these, your busy schedule, what you have going on. I guess it's like story time for me, right? First, thank you for letting me dress in something I haven't worn in 2 years since the pandemic. So I kind of enjoyed that a bit before we left the house. My wife and I moved here about 3 years ago. And we just fell in love with the North End. We fell in love with our home. As we moved in, we fell in love with our neighborhood, our neighbors, everything about it. And we have a family of 6. We've got 2 kids in college. 2 kids in grade school, the 2 of us. We've got some retiring grandparents. So we've all kinds of people. And we want to maximize the use of what we have with this home because we want it to be our forever home. We really can't see ourselves going anywhere else. So we're coming today with some plans that we're looking to achieve to do a couple things. One, I work from home. I've worked from home for 12 years before this pandemic. I was one of the front runners and working from home remotely. And before we moved here, it was tough to work in the house with kids all around and move myself out to a structure that we put in our prior house in the backyard where I could have a different kind of setting to work and be remote. So selfishly, I'm excited at the opportunity to have an office and a bonus space where I can be separated. There's nothing better than having that imaginary line, I guess, or actually a physical line of like leaving work, walking through the yard for 15 feet, the daily commute. And then when you get in your house, that's like the line has been drawn, right? Right now I work at home in the basement. I have a room that I'm using, but it's mentally, it's a little tough, a little different. You don't have that line you get to draw. The computer is always calling me, right? I'm always kind of inching my way back. But a bigger reason is this, that when we've got everybody home for the holidays or over for winter break or summer break with all the kids, we blow up the air mattresses and make the best use of our space. And it would be great if we could have that additional space for college kids when they come back. Grandparents, we have one who lives out of state and is retiring this year and would like to, she already comes once a month for about 3 or 4 days. And her plan is to come once a month for hopefully extended stays, about a 7-day period. And to give her that extra space would be nice in separation while she's here. And I guess if we were all given the opportunity with kids in college to entice them to come home after college, because just maybe we'd get a chance to spend more time with them. I'm kind of hoping that I don't know if it's bribery, but enticement, I'll stick with that. If they would just be interested in maybe coming back and spending more time with us after they graduate and maybe getting a head start on a career, getting a head start on savings for a house, getting a head start on planning for a family, and we could give them a little independence and a little bit of space with that. Why not? We'd all take that opportunity, right? So I do want to make sure I'm clear on the steps we took leading up to this. I mentioned our neighbors, our neighborhood. We were very thoughtful and respectful with the process. Greg can tell you, he bluntly would ask questions. Well, is this what you want? Or are you going to go with what you want? Because what you've told me you want, might be different than what's good for your neighbors. Or would you rather go with what's good for your neighbors? And we always said, we're going to go with what's good for our neighbors. we're not going to do that then, right? So if it's a placement of a window to prevent it from looking down in somebody's yard, and it would have been a nice window to have, if we went with dormers, it would have been facing somebody's yard right behind us who we respect and don't want to put that kind of, view in her backyard. We're not going to go with dormers. We're going to try a different approach. And therefore we went with a bit of a boxier approach, which wasn't as pretty for us, but we were able to respectfully, make the inside work in a way where we could be thoughtful about the neighbors and not have eyes poking in their yards, just like we wouldn't if somebody else did it. And the other thing is that we wrote a letter to all the neighbors and hand delivered prior to any of this, just to let them know our intentions, the same kind of story I told you here, why we're doing it. And we welcomed their feedback. We asked for them to call us, with our phone number, email, reach out to us if they had any questions, concerns, and even more so if they wanted to see the blueprints that we'd come up with so far, so they could get visibility and insight to what we were thinking of doing, because we were more than willing to adjust and make changes based on their feedback. And we did have one person in particular come to us with feedback who lives directly behind us, which we were the most thoughtful about. And she was making sure, hey, I don't want to have a window facing in my yard. I don't want to have people looking at me, while they're in there. And we're like, yeah, definitely. And then she had some structural desires, it'd be nice if it wasn't so boxy. Could we change the roof line or whatever? And I think the next day or 2 days later, we met with Greg and just talked about how, could we do something kind of prettier looking, right, from her angle? How can we accomplish that and not break the bank? But I see what she's saying. I respect that. So those kinds of thoughts and conversations and tact we had in place. We had in-person conversations with all but one neighbor. We got signatures from, I think, 4 of our neighbors just to say, yeah, we're fine with this. And then 3 neighbors just said verbally, I don't have any issues. I'm not going to object to anything. And then one we just couldn't get in touch with before this meeting. So we have Greg and Deb here tonight, just in case you had any, I guess, more structural questions, because we've never done anything like this. So we're just kind of flying by the seat of our pants. But story time is, I have 15 more minutes. Do you guys want to hear me for 15 more minutes? I can come up with something. So thank you again for your time. I don't know if you guys have questions for me or for Greg or Deb, but we have 14 minutes and 45 seconds to talk. So feel free.
Madam Chair, I do have a question for the applicant. Firstly, I just am so appreciative of your intention and thoughtfulness of your neighbors, and taking their feedback into account. It's truly not something we see all the time. So I appreciate that. And my question is, do you have any issues with staff's proposed changes to the garage specifically?
Yeah, I mean, this is recent news as of yesterday, I think. So we're kind of decompressing and trying to figure that out. I think the biggest concern is our understanding, which is limited in terms of architecture, is that the sidewalls, in order to comply with that 1.5 stories, would be down to about, let's stay at the microphone, but 2.5 feet from the sides. We haven't had a chance to even really scope out what that means in terms of our, original thoughts and visions and how that can be accommodated with that. So that would be it. Because 1.5 stories to me, I always thought was maybe it's 5 feet or something, I'm 6 feet. So I'm thinking right here, well, you could still put a chair or a couch or something to get that wall. But when 2.5 was mentioned, that was the only concern I had, was is there a way we could still make it 1.5 stories, but have the sides come to 5 feet? We'll meet in the middle, 2.5 up to 5. But again, I'm just talking here. I'm not the expert. So that's the only thought I had, was if there's an opportunity to make that work.
Great, thank you.
Madam Chair, I've got a question.
Yes, Commissioner Koski.
Thank you for bringing this forward. I didn't see a reference in our paperwork that mentions what the existing height of the house is, except all I see is that this is shorter than the house. Do you know what the height of your home is compared to the garage?
I'm staring at my architecture right now, because I believe the plans that we had would not have exceeded the height of our main home. Is that a correct statement? That is a correct statement. So I'm not sure if the proposed plans would be under or equal to our primary home. Would it be equal to? It would be equal to.
Okay, yeah, I guess my question was, what is the height of your house?
Oh,
And it,
geez, I do not
it's,
know.
Madam Chair, if it's equal, the plans have them at 23 feet, 8 inches.
That's
Yes,
correct.
Thank you.
and then the next question I have is, I'm looking in our packet, and are there any, and maybe this would be for staff too, are there any pictures in the packet of the house? Either from street view, alley view, side view, like is normally required in the application?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, yes, there are several pictures. Here is one of the rear of the home, if I'm correct.
Okay, can you pull up the other photos for us, please?
Yeah, give me one moment here.
Thank you.
I would have moved the garbage can if I knew you guys were taking pictures that day.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, so there are some photos of the backyard of the home, kind of looking towards the alley and the existing garage. I do not believe there is a street view of the home, but I'll kind of look through here. We'll kind of scroll through here. There are pictures.
I also saw that one picture right there of the house. I kind of wanted to, I mean, I want to see if it's a 2-story or a story and a half and get an idea of its height. And basically of the one view that we have, it appears to be a 1.5 stories, and height's awful close to what's drawn. So, but it's hard to see just from that one picture. So those are the questions I had. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Koski. One question, one of the other conditions of approval, and you touched on the one about the 2-story versus 1.5 story. There is a condition to reduce the total square footage to below 1,000 square feet. Have you considered that? And
Yeah. Apologies. I forgot about that part because we were kind of hung up on the roof line. And we're completely open to that. I mean, that's not an issue at all. I think it's more so if we could have the walls a little higher and usable space. So if that means bringing it in on the front or something to stay under that square footage, I don't see a massive issue with that. Your timer is paused, by the way, just in case you don't want to let me go on forever.
That's okay.
So
the 20 minutes is actually for you to talk.
Okay.
We can take as much time to talk to you afterwards
All right.
as we want to.
No
So
pressure now
you're
on me.
fine.
Okay, good.
Are there any more questions? for
Madam
either
Fisher,
staff?
I have a question. Staff mentioned that the other garages, were similar sized. Are there any other garages on the street that are also 1.5 or 2 stories? I couldn't tell from the pictures.
Yeah, there is not directly behind us, but behind us, and if I'm facing to the left, there's a house that has, to me, I thought it was a 2-story structure, but maybe it's just that the roof pitch is different. Oh, you can kind of see it in the picture right here. So oops.
I'll fix it. Sorry.
Yeah, so the garage structure on the left is the neighbor's garage next door to us on our left facing our house. Behind the alley, across the alley, to me, I thought that was a 2-story structure, that white structure right there. It's full, but maybe it's just that the pitch is wider, so it's not 2 stories, but it looks 2-story to me. I'm not an expert again. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks
You'll
for
have
your time.
for a rebuttal in a few minutes.
Okay.
here.
Thank you very much.
Okay, it's the Registered Neighborhood Association here tonight. Looks like Kate is here. Go ahead, Kate, and please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, thanks, Madam Chair. Yes, Kate Henwood, 1116 North 12th Street. So we did trade emails with the applicant, and there were just a few things we didn't get clarity on. I was hoping could be addressed tonight. We had mentioned some concerns. The drawing that we saw had what was labeled a patio. So when you go up the steps, there's a railing outside the front door, and it is called a patio, and there is furniture on it. And we were curious about the width of that patio. Would it really, is it truly just, an entryway to get in the front door, or would there be seating out there? Because it really does feel like it would look down right into the neighbor's yard. So I was curious if, I know you solicited a lot of neighbor feedback, and we asked if you had spoken with those neighbors to, I believe it's the north. You said you thought they were okay with it, but I was curious if that's someone you did get specific feedback, because it really feels like this would have a significant impact on them and visibility right into their backyard. We had also raised the question of power lines, because we did do a site visit, and there are several power poles right there that just look like they would have to be relocated if this building was constructed as currently designed. So those were a few things that we were thinking about. But in general, I would say we support staff's recommendation to approve this, but with the 1.5 story and with the reduced square footage. And that's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to testify tonight? Okay, please come forward and state your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes.
I'm Greg Bauer with Ivy Design. My address is 449 West Main Street, Boise. So I helped my client design this structure. So I just wanted to clarify a few things. To the south of their house, there is a 2-story structure there. Across the street, kitty corner to the north or northwest, there's a 2-story structure there. To the block to the east, there are 3 2-story structures, including 2 in the alley. So there in the neighborhood, there is quite a few 2-story structures. As mentioned by my client, we tried to maximize the space for their family here. So reducing square footage would be very difficult, because you're basically going to neck it down to nothing inside. It's going to be a hallway. So I think the square footage would be a tough one to reduce. I think we can reduce, height of the roof lines. I think that we've proposed a change to how the structure looks visually from the north and from the east, complying with a few of the neighbors' comments. Also regarding the balcony, which was mentioned, that's about 4 feet wide. I just so happened to get a call about 3 weeks ago from the neighbor that owns that garage to the north. He wants me to do a ADU for him in that garage. So I asked him what he thought of our plans, and he was fully in an approval that we could do what we could do. So that concern is not a concern. Also, I met with Idle Power, one of their staff designers on the site, and we discussed the power lines. We cannot have a power line over a roof unless you have 15 foot of clearance. So that's a problem. Well, that's the power line that services the feed to the neighbor to the north. So Idle Power's suggestion was we would have to add another pole at my client's expense, and that pole would probably be located to the north, so it would be a direct shot to the neighbor to the north. So we've already addressed that, and we're looking at having that done as soon as we get approvals to move forward. Is there any questions that you might have for me?
Any questions? Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to testify? No, yeah, you can come up. Please come up, state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is DeBoden Bauer. I'm with Ivy Design at 449 West Main. Madam Chair, the only comment I would make is regarding the regulation for the low wall. Their house is a 2-story, or call it a 1.5, but it has existing approximately 6-foot high walls to accommodate living in that environment. We can try to match that, but to go down to 2 feet or something on the sidewalls is exactly what Greg was saying. It would really take away any living space from that environment. The height of the structure probably will not exceed the one to the north. That seems to be a higher pitched roof. That's all I would like to say is actually another thing, I used to work for the city myself, and I respect the rules, and we try to play with all the guidelines and what it's telling us to work out these formulas. In this case, they moved in and inherited a concrete block garage, and blessings, of course, it's a 2-car garage. You very rarely get a 2-car garage in the North End. It's a blessing, but they inherited it. So cars that, all these projects that have a 1-car garage and maybe a carport are able to fulfill the whole top and put their square footage up top. In this case, they're limited because of the square footage, because they have a 2-car garage. So it's like, trying to play within the rules, but because they inherited that lovely 2-car garage, now they're limited with what they can do with square footage to add. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. So I just wanted to add that for your consideration, and I thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, is there anyone else in the audience wishing to testify tonight? Okay, applicant, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal if you'd like to come up and speak again. Otherwise, you're welcome to yield your time too. Okay, come forward and state your name and address for the record, please. You'll have 5 minutes.
Oh, Nathaniel Peace, 1614 North 23rd Street. I just wanted to clarify, because one of the questions, I don't remember who, apologies, was, are you okay with, reducing the square footage? And I guess, with it being fairly new information as of yesterday, this is a little overwhelming for somebody who's not usually a part of this. I'm like, sure, anything you guys need. My voice gets a little higher like that too, and I'm nervous. But I guess as I sat and listened to the other things being said, we want to maximize the usage of that space. So I don't want that comment I made earlier to be the end all be all, because truly whatever it is I have to do or say or convince or whatever it is to help the case to say, can I please make the most of this so it's actually useful for those things I mentioned earlier? Yes, I'd like to do that. That is the desire for sure. And I want to make sure that's clear. So that's it. So thank you for the extra time.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, have a nice evening.
Are there any questions for the applicant or staff? I do have one question for staff. What's the reasoning for the 1.5 story in the recommendations or conditions of approval? Is that because of the height of the house, existing house, or is it because of the other garages along the alley?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, really the height of the house does appear to be not a full 2-story. And just kind of as an aside, reducing that height does a couple of things. It kind of kills 2 birds with 1 stone, if you will. The 1,000 square foot requirement for a garage to be placed at the rear property line, that's zoning code. In order to do that, to construct on top of that existing garage, it will require a variance. If that roof is brought down and that square footage is reduced upstairs, they could get under the 1,000 square feet, not requiring the variance. So it really kind of accomplishes both items.
Yeah. So would you, if the garage looked like it did, but it was actually lower than the existing house, not knowing what the height of the existing house is would it be okay then? That sounds like now the existing height of the house is the main concern.
Madam Chair, I think Commissioner Koski pointed out, we didn't have the height of the existing
Right,
house
yeah.
in the packet. So, if alternatively, there could be a condition that it not exceed the height of the existing
Mhm.
house, and that may by default make it a story and a half. I don't have that information in front of me, unfortunately.
Okay, great. Yes, thank you very much.
Madam Chair, I have a question for Josh.
Yes, Commissioner Koski.
Josh, is in our application process, don't we require pictures of all four sides of the house? Or when it's just for an ADU or accessory building, do we not require pictures of the house? I just want to make sure I've got that clear for the future.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Commissioner Koski. So it doesn't specify all four sides. What it says is photos of the existing structures on the property and surrounding properties. So there is some room for interpretation there, but it doesn't spell out all four sides of the existing structure.
Great,
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
thank you. Any more questions for the applicant or staff? No? Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I will now close the public portion of the hearing and consider either a motion or discussion.
I'd like to open up for discussion.
Commissioner Malloy, please.
Thank you. So looking at the house is a non-contributing house. It looks that if the garage and the house are the same height, the 23 feet 8 inches, the ADU is not going to exceed that height of the house, a non-contributing house. In addition, it being over 1,000 square feet does not bug me because they are reusing the existing garage, which would require if we reduce the square footage by not lowering it. Another option is like keeping the square footage, not the square footage, but the second story, full story. And then you'd have to bring a wall in or something. You'd have to either take out a wall and reduce the height of that bottom, then you wouldn't have a usable space below. So for me, the project as it's designed with the full 2 stories with the over the square footage, I am fine with it because it is a non-contributing structure and you cannot see the garage or the new ADU from the street of the non-contributing house.
Thank you, Commissioner Malloy. Are there any other comments?
Madam Commissioner,
Yes.
I was going to agree with Commissioner Malloy, especially about the 1,000 square feet. I just don't know that that's our problem. If they want to go deal with the city and get the planning variance, like they can go do that. So I'm not, I guess, annoyed by I could take that out because that's another problem that they can go deal with another agency about. On the second condition, I would move to change it maybe to reduce the second story, not to a 1.5, but to be less than the size of the existing property. And that way, once they go and measure that, they can go figure out if it's, as long as it's lower than the front house, I don't really care how high the garage is in the back, would be my kind of take on it.
Madam Chair, I would echo my support in Commissioner Otter's statements. And if she were to move, so to speak, I would be in support of that.
Thank you. I guess one thing I would just recommend, maybe since it would require a variance to be over 1,000 feet, which I don't think we can just remove that requirement, but maybe we could add, and Josh, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe we can add that it needs to be below 1,000 square feet or obtain a variance would probably be how we'd have to word that.
Madam Chair, I recommend wording similar to that, either
Okay.
obtain a variance or reduce the size to less than 1,000 square feet. Yep,
Great.
which is consistent with practices, what we normally do.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so
Madam Chair, I have something to add.
Oh, okay, thank you, Commissioner Koski.
Sorry, I'm not there. So, but at least I can join on Zoom. So, according to the staff's report, and the recommendations of changing it to a 1.5 stories and reducing the square footage to under 1,000 square feet, I'm I'm in support of that. But I have some pretty, I'm supportive of that, but I have a hard time approving that because in order to change it to a story and a half, come under 1,000 square feet, yes, that would meet the setback requirements based on where the garage is on the back property line of 0. Because at over 1,000 square feet, it needs to be 15-foot setback. And yes, that's something that planning and zoning needs to look at and further approval, not us. But I don't see that there is a hardship in meeting that setback, except that you would have to build a new garage. The other thing is approving it with those conditions dramatically changes the design of the project, and we'd be approving something that is going to be so significantly different. I'd have a hard time approving that because we won't be able to see the design. And then the other thing that I have a hard time with is we don't know the height of the house, and I would like to know what that measurement is. And that appears from the picture of the back, it is a 1.5-story house. So, I mean, there's a lot of things up in the air here that would lead me to not approve the project as per the conditions recommended by staff. And based on the other commissioners' comments about keeping it a 2-story and 1,000 and the size it is, I'd have a hard time approving that too, because I don't know what the height of the house is, and approving a structure that's over 1,000 square feet on the property line without a variance, I wouldn't be able to approve it because I wouldn't agree with it.
Commissioner Koski, I wasn't suggesting that we approve the 2-story. I was suggesting we approve it at the height of or less than the height of the existing house. So that would be the changes I would make to the wording. I don't know if that helps you or not.
Thank you.
And also addressing the 1,000 square feet, I do think we have to put in there that they need to gain a variance, and I don't know if that would be approved or not, but I think that there's options that you could do reusing the existing garage, which I would really hope that they would still try to do, because you could just not build over the whole top of it. You know, you'd have a smaller living space upstairs, but you could only build, you know, I can't remember how big the garage is, but just build that much more to get to 1,000 square feet total. So there's probably options other than, you know, I think they have options they can look at. I just think that in my mind, I'm fine with it being over 1,000 square feet because of the existing garage, as long as they, you know, go through the process to get the variance for that.
Madam Chair.
Comments or a motion?
I will take a whack at a motion. I move to approve DRH. Sorry, let me pull up the item number, DRH 21-00506, with added conditions to include that the height of the structure not exceed the height of the existing house, and that the applicant obtain a variance or reduce the square footage to 1,000 square feet.
I'm sorry, what's that? Yeah. Do you want to revise condition B to the height condition, or remove it, one or the other?
Oh, I guess I wasn't clear. To revise that the height of the structure not exceed the height of the existing house.
Okay, that would become condition B.
Correct.
Okay. And then condition A would be revised.
Correct.
Okay.
That the applicant either obtain a variance or reduce the square footage to 1,000 square feet.
Great. Thank you. Commissioner Montoto, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Otter seconds. Did you get all that?
Would you like me to restate it?
Okay, if you're ready, then please call the roll.
Weaver,
Aye.
Montoto,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Pape,
Aye.
Otter,
Aye.
Husky.
Nay.
Motion carries 5 in favor, 1 against.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Our next item that we'll hear tonight is item number 6, DRH 21-00510. Lawrence Pulliam, 1502 West Heron Street. Staff, could we please have the report?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. The applicant is requesting a retroactive certificate of appropriateness to remove an existing mature tree on property at 1502 West Heron Street in the North End Historic District. The property is at the is located at the northwest corner of Heron and 15th Street. There is detached curb, gutter, and sidewalk with street trees along both frontages. So the applicant did remove a Siberian elm in the backyard indicated by the asterisk on the site plan. Might be a little hard to see, but there's the cursor in that location. And they are proposing a new oak tree to be planted as a replacement. The property was turned into code compliance. We were made aware of the removal of the tree, and the applicant submitted the application for the certificate of appropriateness. That certificate of appropriateness was approved with a condition to replace the caliper inches of the tree either on site or off site through a donation to the city tree fund. The applicant has appealed that decision, and their grounds are that 36 inches of tree is excessive for the subject site and could not be reasonably replaced. The lot already has 4 large trees and 2 medium trees. There is not equity of enforcement, and they did attach some certificate of appropriatenesses allowing replacement trees, and then common sense was the final grounds for appeal. We did receive some comments from City Forestry that are included in the packet. City Forestry, and I'll preface this with it. It's the unfortunate thing about retroactive tree removal approvals is it's extremely difficult to assess the health or condition of the tree. City Forestry did go on site, did not find indications of rot or disease in the remaining tree that was left when they visited the site. But again, it's difficult to assess that kind of thing after the fact. And they disagreed with the assessment that was provided by the applicant from the tree service and found that it was not a diseased or dying tree. So again, the applicant has appealed that certificate of appropriateness requiring the 36 inches of mitigation. They are here tonight to speak with you, and I would stand for any questions.
Any questions for staff?
Madam Chair, I do not have any questions for staff, but I will be, I do need to state for the record that I was on site and had contact during the removal of the tree with the homeowner, so I'll be recusing myself from as a commissioner from this item, but I will be testifying as a public member. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Commissioner Koski. I do have one question for you. The 36-inch of caliper, can you clarify, could that just be multiple trees that will add up to that? Okay.
Madam Chair, apologies for not being more clear. Yeah, so the tree mitigation standards are that equal caliper inches are replaced. I think it'd be difficult, if not impossible, to find a 36-inch tree. So
sure.
It's an equal number of caliper inches spread among smaller trees.
Okay. Yeah. And it's the caliper that they're planted at or what they grow to? Planted at. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
And you can understand how that would be difficult
Yeah.
on a small site. So that's why there is the option for the donation to the tree fund.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Is the applicant present?
Sorry, Madam Commissioner, I have one question for staff.
Oh, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Josh, what's the approximate cost of replacing the 36-inch caliper tree?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Otter, let me look through the packet real quick and see if forestry included a number in their letter. That's going to be highly dependent on nursery prices. And unfortunately, I haven't bought a tree in a long time, so I don't know.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Please
Okay.
state your name and address for the record, and you have 20 minutes.
Okay, my name is Lawrence Pulliam. I'm the owner of the 1502 Heron. And I appreciate you listening to this. Those pictures make it look worse than it really was. And again, I'm not, I'd already gotten a certificate of appropriateness. But I think the problem that I had again is just the specific conditions of approval. 36 inches is way too much for this small lot, as Josh said. And even if you would carve it up into a normal size planting tree of maybe 4 inches of diameter, that you're talking about planting 9 trees, which makes absolutely no sense. So the tree was removed. Well, let me back up just for a second. I'm a master gardener, so I very much appreciate horticulture and trees and that kind of thing. This tree was a problem. And you can tell when you look at it, it was volunteer elm tree, and it grew right up underneath power lines, and you can see those lines. So it was a problem. And about every other year, it would drop large branches on my neighbor, which is just to the right of that fence, and on our property, that we would have to get chainsaws and cut it up. So it was just like, this tree is not appropriate for this location. And when I hired the tree service to cut it down, they told me that there were a lot of things wrong with it. And the fact that the forestry couldn't see that, I can understand because the tree's gone. But if you actually saw the tree, it did have issues. If you were up close and had lived around it for a long time. So anyway, longer story shorter, hopefully. I'm just asking that there's a location, and I provided through an email, and I don't know if Josh has it, another drawing of where existing trees are on the property. And there's, like I said, 4 large trees and 2 smaller trees. And in terms of where you should plant a tree, as far as distance from a building and from other trees, there's really just kind of one area on where I had marked my suggested oak tree to be planted. There's really only one spot that's appropriate that doesn't have phone lines and power lines. And I sent in the example of where would be an appropriate place to put a tree. I'm all for trees, love trees. I've got a whole bunch on my property where I live now. So my suggestion was just to plant, and I don't have it specifically listed, but I was looking at the Treasure Valley Tree Selection Guide. Elms are not any of the trees that are suggested, but I'm thinking that a good class two tree, which is right out of this Treasure Valley Tree Selection Guide, that they can reach up to 30 or 40 feet, and they should be 30 or 40 feet spaced. So you can see right here where I'm suggesting there's a fence right here, there's a tree right there, there's 2 trees here, there's 3 trees along here, and I've got phone lines going through there and a power line going there. And you can see the massive area that tree, that problem tree, so when I just kind of looked around the property, it seemed like for proper distance from buildings and from power lines, there's this area right here that would be appropriate. And it would also be great for in the summertime when the sun comes up, it would provide shade for the house. But that would really only accommodate one tree. And the kind of trees that you would buy, are like 4 to 5 inches in diameter, which is the calipers they're talking about. And, but within a few years, it would easily fill in and hopefully wouldn't be any danger to the power lines and the telephone lines. So that's what made a lot of sense to me. And and again, I was a little shocked when I saw the rule that you're supposed to replace caliper for caliper. I think that should be related to the property. And there was a couple of examples that I sent in of 2 properties recently that had trees removed. And again, the only reason it was a big deal was because they had not applied for a certificate of appropriateness on a timely basis. But there was the tree, a 16-inch tree that was it's not that one. That's the 19th property. I'll get to that in a second. But there was a 16th-inch tree on Harrison that was used by the state and moved by the police. Was taken in front of the Capitol, and but all that's required from the is to plant another tree. Down here it says tree to be mitigated by planting another tree, not 16-inch tree, not 36. It's like, okay, wait a minute. I have property that is like appropriately a nice tree that can grow into a good quality tree, but in that case, all it was required was plant another tree. And then on the other property you were being looked at on 19th, where there was a big deal, everybody got excited, the historical commission, the neighbors, the police, it got all the way to there are 10 trees here. They all look to be at least 12 inches, maybe not that one, but most of them do. So if you got 10 trees times 12 inches with this caliper method, you got 120 inches. The end result of this from the city council said plant 7 trees, 10 to 15 feet, 10 to 20 feet high. It was either 10 to 15 or 10 to 20 feet high. And those trees at 4 inches each, they got 28 inches of tree. So I guess my point is that the whole caliper thing makes no sense. It needs to be related to the property. And it seems to me if you're going to replace a tree, that will grow into something good, so anyway, my suggestion is to, plant a good class 2 tree. And there's a lot of varieties that are listed in this book, nice trees that provide some nice shade, and it makes a lot of sense instead of dealing with this 36. The other thing that was bothering me with regard to me appealing these site-specific conditions was the suggestion of a charitable contribution to the tree fund. Well, in my own mind, common sense would be, maybe $400 or $500, something like that, whatever it would cost to plant a tree. Well, what I got from the planning and development services, well, let's see, we've talked with all kinds of people, and $250 per inch, so 250 times 36 was like a $9,000 contribution. And so secondarily, they said, well, that seems like a lot. Maybe we can cut it down to half that. So it's still like a $4,500 contribution. I'm going, that's nuts. So anyway, I'm sorry for ranting and raving, but my point is that I think that to replace a lost tree makes a lot of sense, but I think it makes sense to relate it to the specific property and to what the available space is and the relative other trees that are there. I mean, you can envision a property that's just fully covered with trees, and you remove one and you probably don't want to put another one there. Actually, some of them should be thinned out. So anyway, that's where I'm coming from. More than anything is just the requirement of replanting. And I fully intend to replant. They've given me 2 years to get it done. But I'd want to plant a good quality class 2 tree that would serve the property well and not be a danger. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the applicant or staff? I guess I have one question for staff. So back on the caliper tree to replace can you remind me where is that in code? It's in the city code, general city code?
Madam Chair, it's in the zoning code, what we would
Okay.
refer to as the landscape ordinance. It's in 11-07 of the zoning code.
Okay.
Yep.
And we don't know why, or do we know why other, some of these other things you pointed out didn't actually require the same caliper tree?
I don't have the details in front of me. I think, there's a few factors. One of the considerations this commission makes for existing trees to be removed is if it's extremely close to a building and causing damage. I don't want to speak out of turn, but I believe that the state capitol tree was very close to a home and was probably causing damage, maybe the varying factor in that one. But I can't state that definitively.
Okay, great. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, is the Registered Neighborhood Association here to testify? Kate, go ahead and state your name and address for the record, and you have 20 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kate Henwood, 1116 North 12th Street. We support staff's recommended denial of this appeal. We know that the applicant was well aware of the C of A requirement, but chose to defy the rules and cut down this tree anyway. We just, generally speaking, really remain concerned about the apparent lack of consistency in remedies required on after tree removal C of A approvals, which is just unfortunate and complicates our mutual interest in preserving our tree canopy. So we support staff's recommendation.
Great, thank you very much. Is there anyone else here in the audience wishing to testify?
I would, Madam Chair, I'd like to testify.
Okay, then please state your name and address for the record. And you have 3 minutes.
Okay, Devin Koski, 1775 West State Street, Idaho, 83702. I am testifying as a member of the public. I have a number of comments. First of all, if you pull the overhead shot up, there was talk of the other large trees on the property. The 3 largest trees on the property are actually in the parking strip on the other side of the sidewalk, not on the backyard. This is a very large yard, and they took down a very large tree. I was on site for a number of hours. I actually was there and could have saved half the tree. I notified the tree company that permit was required. They made a phone call. After hanging up the phone, proceeded to cut down even faster. I called code compliance. You can't get through to code compliance without going online. I called Historic Preservation. I called Nina. I called City Forestry, and one of the neighbors also called the police. We were there. We could have stopped it. The applicant did show up, as well as the person who runs the tree company. A neighbor had called the tree company to also complain. And even while the owner on site and the guy running the tree company on site, knowing that they needed a permit to do it, they continued to cut it down. And when I approached the homeowner, I had witnesses. Mark Baltus from Nina was with me. I said, "You're here as a homeowner, you own the home. You have the guy who runs the tree company with you. You've been told, the police have been called, the city's been called, forestry's been called, Nina's been called, and historic's been called, and that it requires a permit and you don't have one. Why do you continue to cut the tree down?" And his reply to me was, "It's because the fine is so small and the tree needs to go." So that tells me he was aware. If you're aware of a fine, you're aware that there needs to be a permit. He purposely, willingly went against code and continued to do it. So by the time actually forestry showed up, the tree was gone. I state all this just so it's on the record. There's more than enough room in this yard. If you look at that overhead view, to put a larger tree down there, or the require what's being asked for in the certificate of appropriateness. I would strongly urge that as commissioners and the commission that you consider what the staff report has shown to as their conditions of approval. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to participate? Okay, great. Okay, the applicant has 5 minutes for rebuttal. If you'd like to use that time.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Koski was there, but he was not a very model citizen at the time. And I was not aware of the rules with regard to cutting down a historical tree. And his comment about what I said as to why I cut the tree down is totally false. And I think he shouldn't even been allowed to make a comment here as a public citizen, because he was, like I said, not acting as professionally as far as I was concerned. When he finally did ask that we stop cutting the tree down, it was majorly reduced already. And to not finish the job, you would have left a totally inappropriate, ugly tree remaining. So it made no sense. He knew nothing about the condition of the tree or anything. And he's making it sound like I was just flagrantly flying in the face of the rules and regulations. And that's not true. So I don't really know what else to say other than the fact that this was a dangerous tree that was causing problems. I hired an outfit. They came out and began to work. People gradually started filing in. And then a couple of neighbors, including Mr. Koski, were asking me a few questions, basically said, that a deal is required, a certificate of appropriateness is required. And so I said, okay, but it's kind of too late now. I think we'll just go ahead and finish it off and I'll get the certificate of appropriateness, which I did, but I was not doing it in face of some small fine. That's total falsehood. So I don't appreciate his comments. It's not true. And the yard, if you really go visit it, it looks like it's a big yard, but when you look at those power lines, and the other site plan is a better one. I drew where the power lines were, the phone lines. There's really no appropriate place to put in 36 inches of tree. What makes sense is to put one tree in that's going to grow into a nice 40-foot tree right where I suggested, and when I did work with the police and they were threatening a misdemeanor, they totally dismissed it. And so anyway, I think this is just Koski having some kind of vindication for what he didn't think was correct going on at the time. And I don't appreciate it. So anyway, that's my comment. I think it's totally inappropriate for the conditions that are required. It makes no sense. And especially the contribution that's being requested. And it just doesn't in line with what's happened over the last 2 years on the same situation. So anyway, that's all I have to say. And I'm sorry I'm so angry, but it is very frustrating.
Great. Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the applicant or staff?
Madam Commissioner, I have a question for staff.
Commissioner Otter?
Josh, what is the average fine that we would impose on somebody doing something to a home in the historic district?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Otter, so illegal work that is cited with a notice of violation, the maximum fine is $1,000, and I believe that's state law.
Are there any other questions? Okay, great. Thank you very much. I will now close the public portion of the hearing and consider a motion or discussion?
Madam Chair, I'd like discussion for a
Yep.
minute.
Yeah, Commissioner Otter, please.
I guess I would say, I love trees. We hand watered our trees when we were doing our renovation because we didn't want to lose some. But a $9,000 fine when we only fine people $1,000 for stuff that they do to their homes seems egregious to me. So I would love to cap it at $1,000 versus having him have to pay $9,000. Like he should put a tree on his property and he should pay some money to the Boise Tree Fund. But I think if it's more than what we can fine people for what they do to their homes, that seems like an odd kind of juxtaposition to me.
Thank you. Any other comments? I guess I guess I have a question for staff again. I don't, the fines and these things that, like what I was kind of getting at is where they're coming from in this, in the landscape ordinance. Can we recommend anything we want? I mean, we could set a limit for a fine, I guess. What are our limits on that?
Madam Chair, I suppose you could recommend anything you want. The limit, the monetary limit, it would probably, I believe it makes some sense. Maybe it would be a caliper inch limit, right? Like maybe there's an appropriate caliper inches, I think might be a better way to approach it, just because you then have option for on-site, off-site. So, if 36 inches isn't appropriate, maybe there's a lower caliper inches. Without having what a tree costs per caliper inch in the nursery in front of me, that may be somewhat difficult to come up with an accurate number. But I think that limiting it to a certain caliper inch replacement would probably give the applicant more options.
Okay, thank you. Well, I guess my comments on this are that I find it very hard, since I'm not a landscape specialist, that I don't really know, even telling him he needs to plant 3-4 caliper trees or something like that. I don't really know if they'll fit on the site, and I don't know if they'll do anything to the house or anything underground. So it's really hard for me to make that decision. And I kind of wish that we didn't have to do that. And then, comes back to maybe, it's easiest just to deny or approve this and let that decision go to someone else who better knows these. But if, how the trees will affect the house. But I guess I'd be open for other comments from other commissioners on that.
Madam Chair, I would love to offer my comments. I did pull up the city code for the mitigation of trees. It's 11-07-05F4, and that code states healthy, desirable trees 4-inch caliber or greater are removed shall be replaced with an equal replacement of the total caliper inches lost either on-site or off-site per recommendation of the city forester. For example, 2 10-inch caliper trees removed may be mitigated with 4 5-inch caliper trees, 5 4-inch caliper trees, or 7 3-inch caliper trees. If that is helpful to any of my fellow commissioners. And looking, just my personal opinion, looking at the photos, I just did a quick Google search of some of the diseases mentioned in the letter by Premier Tree and Landscape provided in the packet: Dutch elm disease, heart rot. And if you look at what trees that suffer from those diseases look like, and then you take a look at the photos provided in the packet, you can see evidence of those diseases in the trees. I agree with Commissioner Otter that it seems excessive to fine an individual $9,000. However, rules are rules, and a certificate of appropriateness is required for removal. And I'd be really interested in hearing my fellow commissioners' thoughts at this point.
I guess I'll weigh in. I mean, I do sort of agree with Commissioner Otter that it is ridiculous that we are asking him to pay $9,000 when a fine for a house is $1,000. In my mind, that should be reversed to deter people from doing things to their homes that they shouldn't be doing, like using illegal siding and things like that, which we heard during our work session. I don't know how we can remedy the situation, but I do know that the neighborhood associations, they wanted people to be punished for their actions when it comes to trees, especially Nina. And I don't know why those other cases were not treated the same way. I think if the city is going to have a law like this or ordinance or zoning code, it should be upheld the same across the board. So I don't know. $9,000 is excessive, but at the same time, you did break the law. So,
Anybody like to entertain a motion?
I have a question. If we want a condition, a fine, or a caliber, how would we do that?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Malloy, I was just kind of thinking that through a little bit. I think it could be something along the lines of, mitigation is required for the tree in caliper inches not to exceed the cost of $1,000 or something like that. And that way it takes into account nursery prices. I mean, if I have no idea how many caliper inches you get for that, quite honestly. But whatever that amount that you felt appropriate is, that you could condition it that way.
I would be good with a $3,000. That's 1/3 of what he paying or expected to pay at this point, and plus a tree in his yard. I don't know how others feel.
Madam Commissioner, I have a question.
Yes.
Are we his final appeal? Does he have one more? Like, can he go to the city?
Yeah.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Otter, he could appeal to City Council.
Madam Chair, my only comment too, I also agree that $9,000 is extreme, but I don't feel that I myself am a professional enough to know what value to place on that scenario. And I don't know if I would feel comfortable doing so.
I think this should go to City Council. I don't think we should be making a decision as a commission.
So with that, the motion would be to, we could deny it, and then that would push them on to City Council would be what would happen. Because I agree with Commissioner Pape that it just setting a random $3,000, and I appreciate that the reduction, but I still don't know what that means in terms of trees and calipers and placement on the site and things like that. So I think that I would be more inclined to deny the appeal and have it go forward with maybe some more information on cost and what could really be done on the site as far as, how many trees can you plant on the site and what sizes would realistically be, good for a site of that size.
I'll make a motion then.
Okay, Commissioner Millay.
I move to deny the appeal of DRH 21-00510 based on the staff's analysis findings contained within the staff report.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Pape, second. Christina, can you please call the roll?
Weaver,
Aye.
Montoto,
No.
Malloy,
Aye.
Pape,
Aye.
Otter,
No.
motion carries. 3, 4, 2 against.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we'll hear our next item, and then I think after that, we'll take a break. I'm hoping we can move through this one, and then we'll take a short break. It's item number 8, which is DRH 22-00010. Don Jerome at 1516 North 15th Street. Will you please have the staff report?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. DRH 22-00010 at 1516 North 15th Street is an application to construct a 2-story addition to an existing single-family home on property in RC1H zone in the North End Historic District, and the existing property is non-contributing. It's located near the intersection of 15th and Reidenbaugh Street. So the applicant has proposed to add on to the side of the home. It is set back from the front facade and extends to the south in kind of the large side yard area that the property currently contains. There is an existing detached garage, and there are no proposed changes to that at this time. In your packet, the conditions of approval that we included recommended reducing the mass of the structure to the south where that addition is. The applicant has taken that and made some new drawings that I've included in the presentation tonight, that how they feel they could address those conditions of approval. If you recall, that condition said to set back the upper floor 3 feet and provide an increased transition down to the existing property to the south. And for reference, you can see it here. This is the existing house. There's that kind of larger side yard where the proposed addition would go. The home to the right is a single-story structure with a hip roof. The applicant has submitted site photos with some heights of surrounding properties, and there are quite a few homes on this block that are full 2-story. The property directly to the north on the left side of the screen there, they estimate at 25 feet in height. A house across the street, they estimate at 27 feet. Down the street, 25 feet, and end of block across the street, estimated 30 feet. So there are 2-story homes on the subject block, but we did feel that kind of increased transition to the property to the south was appropriate, and we conditioned it. So this drawing is what the applicant submitted, that they would propose to comply with that condition of approval. With that condition, we did recommend approval of the application. I would stand for any questions, and the applicant is here to discuss.
Great, thank you. Is the applicant present? They're all on. Okay.
Hello.
Hi, please state your name and address for the record, and you have 20 minutes.
Okay, great. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Will Sanchez. I'm the owner of 1516 North 15th, and Don Jerome is the contractor for my home. She is not present this evening, so if there are any questions for her, we can get back with her. But I know Don has worked closely with Josh on the details and the revisions for this. The home, to my understanding, it was built in 1912, according to property records. It is currently a 1-story home with 2 small bedrooms and 1 bath with a basement that houses the utilities for the furnace and water heater. The home is approximately 110 years old and requires a substantial amount of work to make this home habitable. The interior has some electrical and plumbing issues that need to be addressed. It is also not energy efficient in its current state. On the exterior, the roof shingles have some usable life, but are cracking and show signs of aging with exposed felt. Inside the attic, there is no proper ventilation to allow fresh air to circulate. And talking with Don, we felt a lot of repair was needed. Access to the basement currently is physically dangerous, and it's limited to a steep staircase, which is not up to current code. Previous owners have installed a elevator or lift, but it's also just as dangerous to use and would not recommend anyone to use it. The basement walls that are there need to be properly addressed to ensure that they are strong. And we also want to prevent water from intruding inside. So Dawn, during her inspection, she noted that there was some seepage coming in. So the entire basement needs to be reinforced. So given the amount of work required, I believe a remodel would be appropriate to create a home that would be suitable for my household needs according to code, as well as be acceptable to the neighborhood. Even though this home is non-contributing to the district, a remodel home we're trying our best to retain features of the original home. For example, in the front, we're retaining characteristics of the front porch, which has windows and is being used as a sitting area. So in the new design, we intend to make that a sitting area, for example. And then on the roof, we're retaining that gable roof above that section. So on the main level, we are adding square footage to the south to accommodate a primary bedroom with an ensuite, as well as an office. And we're adding a second story to accommodate for secondary bedrooms. In the basement, we're addressing the foundation wall issues. We're adding an egress window, and we're looking to turn this into a proper finished basement. On the exterior, the home will continue to be a craftsman style home with either gable or Dutch hip roofing and a featured gable dormer. The home will have trellises on both front and back. And we're hoping that this home will fit well with the community and the district, and hope that we can make a positive impact as well. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant or staff?
I have a question, Chair, for staff. Do we have any street view photos of the rest of the block, of the other homes on either side of it and across the street? I didn't see any in the packet. And
Madam Chair, Commissioner Koski, so the applicant provided us those photos that did reference the height of some existing properties, but I don't know that we have like a complete street view of the street. I can jump in and look real quick.
okay, that's an important detail I think we should work on in the future, having, especially with some of these big homes being built. But that's my only question. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Are there any other questions? All right, is the Registered Neighborhood Association here to testify? Thank you. Kate, please state your name and address for the record, and you have 20 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kate Henwood, 1116 North 12th Street. So we did, cruise over and take a look at this site in person, and, the home to the north is, to me, looks like a 1.5 story home. And as mentioned, the house to the south is a single story home, but there are, a lot of other tall homes on the block. I think it just comes down to the block, probably can accommodate this design, but it's just a situation where we've got a very large addition that's resulting in a very large house with max lot coverage. So we do appreciate staff's request for those changes, and likewise appreciate the applicant's speedy response to get those revised. plans in. They're kind of hard to see visually on the plans, the change from between the old plans and the new plans, but I think they will make a difference just in the actual building of the home. Oh, we also mentioned, I know the architect is not here tonight, but we have suggested, our usual recommendations of the down-shielded lights and permeable paving where applicable. So just kind of our usual requests. But yeah, I think, again, it's just the block probably can't accommodate it, but we are looking at another really big house on a really big lot with a lot of coverage. So yeah, that's it from us. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone else from the public wishing to testify? Okay, that doesn't look like it. All right, the applicant, if you're still on, you have 5 minutes for a rebuttal.
Okay, thank you very much for Kate for your response, and I hope that we are able to address any concerns. We can follow up with Don and Josh as well and address any of that if there's any further concerns or comments. But we want to be sure that this will be suitable and we are in compliance with the historical guidelines. And that's all for me.
Great. Thank you very much. Are there any last questions for staff or the applicant?
Madam Chair, I have one more question.
Michelle?
With the revisions that came through, Josh, how large is the house square footage wise?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Ard, give me just 1 second to confirm that. Madam Chair and Commissioner Otter, with the basement in the home, it does the total listed on those new drawings with the revision is 4,106 square feet.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, hearing none, I will go ahead and close the public portion of the hearing and consider a motion or discussion.
I'd like to open it up for discussion.
Okay, Commissioner Malloy.
It is a rather large house. 4,000 square feet is big. I think with the changes they've done, I hope that will help with the size. I don't know if there's a way to set back that even further, or maybe use landscaping to blend it in better. I'm not quite sure. But I would, if we do approve this, I would like to include Nina's request of permeable paving and also downlights. So those are my comments.
Great, thank you. Are there any other comments?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Kosky.
I'm struggling with the massing of this. I mean, we can talk square footage and all that kind of stuff, but you're taking a 16-foot house and you're doubling it, basically going up to 30 foot, 7 inches. And while the rest of the block does have some other taller structures, I can understand that, but when you're talking about massing and how it fits in with the neighboring structures, if you could sit back and look at the 5 houses on that stretch, on that block, all facing west, I'm really struggling with the massing of it. I don't think it's congruent with the other neighbors. So I don't know if there can be more done as far as setting back some of the addition or whatnot. I mean, obviously they've worked very hard to get it to this point, but as it sits now, unless I'm convinced otherwise, I would vote for non-approval based on its massing.
Thank you, Commissioner Koski. Any other comments?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I guess sort of playing devil's advocate to Commissioner Koski's comments about the massing, in the packet, the photos of surrounding properties that were provided by the applicant, the shortest of those properties is 25 feet. And the existing height of this home is 16 feet. And the largest is 30 feet. Proposed height of the new addition is 30 feet 7 inches. I would almost argue that the existing house doesn't fit in and isn't congruous with the neighborhood, just due to the size and the surrounding houses. They're within lot coverage. They're at 35% proposed. The proposed square footage, including the basement, is 4,106 square feet. I would be in support of Nina's request of permeable paving, but other than that, I personally don't see an issue with this, especially since the elementary school is across the street and that is such a large structure. I don't think it would propose such a huge shock to the block face.
Madam Chair and Commissioner Montoto, where do you get the height measurements of the neighboring houses?
Commissioner Koski, Madam Chair, they're actually in the packet on photos, and they are numbered between 13 and 17. And they're all there.
But those are not the 5 houses on that side of the block. Some of them are across the street, some of them are kitty corner. And I would also argue that while the Washington School is nearby, it's not on the block. They're the block south of it. So they are not across from Washington School. This is where a street view would really be helpful of the 5 houses. The 5 houses on that side of the street, 3 are single stories, 2 are 1.5 stories. There's no 2nd story house on that side of the street. And if we could take the measurements of those 5 houses, not just the 5 that he has pictured, you'll see that he's pictured ones from across the street, not the 5 that are on that block. So respectfully, I disagree with you a little bit, but it's looking at the information we have in front of us isn't, you take pictures of the big houses, right? You don't take pictures of the small ones. So even if they're across the street. So that's why I struggle. I struggle because I don't think we have the whole picture.
Madam Chair, if I may add as well, there's also a map. It looks like a satellite image on page 2 of the packet that does show the greater neighborhood, not just the initial block face. And I do think that does kind of provide somewhat of an idea of footprint and location of the home. If you look again, the home in question is one house south east of Washington Elementary School, just to provide some context. And with that, I suppose I'm happy to take a whack at a motion unless any other commissioners would like to offer comments.
Go ahead, and we can then comment some more after the motion's made.
Great. I move to approve DRH 22-00010 based on staff's analysis and findings contained within the staff report, adding a condition of permeable paving.
Downlighting.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Downlighting.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
But if you want.
And what was the word?
Downlighting.
Downlighting, I'm sorry.
Okay, we have a first from Commissioner Montetto. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Otter seconds. Is there any additional discussion? Okay, Christina, can you please call the roll?
Weaver,
Aye.
Untotal,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Pape,
Aye.
Otter,
Aye.
Housekeeping,
Nay.
5 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. We have 2 more items on our agenda tonight. Would you like to take a 10-minute break or just power through the last 2 items? It's totally.
Could we take like a 5-minute break
Yes,
possibly?
absolutely. Yep.
I would appreciate that.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. We'll take a 5-minute break and be right back. To go?
I think so, yeah.
Great.
We have everybody available.
Okay, so the next item on our list is item number 11, DRH 22-00025, Jeffrey Wallace at 402 West Pueblo Street. We have the staff report, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. The applicant has requested to demolish an existing home and construct a single family residence on property at 402 West Pueblo Street in the R1CH zone in the North End Historic District, and the property is non-contributing, and we'll get to that more in a second. So the applicant or the subject property is located at the northwest corner of 4th and Pueblo. And currently, the property contains a minimal traditional home with a garage that is attached by a carport. The applicant would propose to demolish that and construct a single-story dwelling with a detached garage. The property survey that we have on file with the city does list the property as non-contributing. I was notified by Commissioner Malloy that the State Historic Preservation Office has a survey on file that lists it as contributing. So we do have a little bit of discrepancy. In preparation for tonight, we did take a look at the surrounding properties to hopefully provide some context. Maybe that would be useful. So I think here's a street view that Commissioner Koski was hoping for on the last one, but you kind of get this on the lower left-hand corner there, you get a street view down Pueblo. There's a very similar minimal traditional home next door, and then the next one is also a similar minimal traditional. The surveys for those properties also are listed as non-contributing in our records. And then across the street, obviously a newer construction home, certainly not from the same time period as these, but it's non-contributing as well. Just doing a quick kind of assessment of the block, kind of going down the block on both sides of the street. There weren't any contributing properties in close proximity to this one, and certainly none that exhibited the same characteristics that this house does. So the applicant, again, is proposing to demolish it, construct a single-story home with a detached garage. We are in support, have recommended approval of the application with a few conditions. Per recent discussions, last month or the month before, we did recommend that the stone on the house be natural and not cultured. But beyond that, we did find that the proposal complies with the residential guidelines and recommended approval. With that, I would stand for any questions, and I believe the applicant is present.
Great. Any questions for staff? Okay. The applicant, if you're present, you may come up. Please state your name and your address for the record, and you have 20 minutes.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you very much for considering this project. My name is Kirsten Wallace with Wallace Custom Design and Renovation. Address is 816 North Haynes Street, Boise 83712. And I'm speaking for Jeffrey, who is over there with knee surgery. So if you have any questions, he may be able to answer them from the chair. But the only concern we had with staff's recommendations were the requirement to comply with the ACHD sidewalk, curb and gutter, I believe it is. And we're willing to work with ACHD, but we're not sure exactly how to accomplish what staff has recommended, as ACHD doesn't have any elevations or plans for curb and gutter. And on that corner, there are no sidewalks presently, and we're unsure how to take into consideration the existing sandstone wall, which is above the, the ground level. And we're concerned also that if sidewalk is poured, it would need to match up to the existing sandstone wall. So, and I think I also mentioned already that there is no existing curb and gutter on the street at all. So with that said, we would be willing to work with ACHD to come up with a workable solution, but we're not sure that the staff recommendations as they are stated right now can be complied with. And that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant or staff? I guess Josh, the question about, or the condition about ACHD, is that, I mean, that's something they could just work through with ACHD. We don't really have much, we won't have much opinion on that, I'm assuming.
Madam Chair, so we worded the condition to give the applicant some opportunity to work with ACHD on a solution that is doable. On situations like this, a corner lot, no existing curb, gutter, and sidewalk on adjacent properties. It can be really problematic to put curb and gutter in because you create drainage problems, and it's really a whole street solution. So we certainly worded the condition that if there are specifically if drainage conditions do not allow curb and gutter, the detached sidewalk can go in, and we do that throughout the city on projects. Certainly through the design review process on substandard lot applications, a lot of times curb and gutter is not possible, but a sidewalk is, and we do get that whenever available. In terms of ACHD not having plans drawn up for curb, gutter, or sidewalk in this condition, or in this location, that would be the applicant's responsibility to design a sidewalk. ACHD reviews and approves those through their permitting process, which is outside of the city process, and they could work out any of those concerns with ACHD.
Okay, great. Thank you. Are there any other questions for the applicant or staff? Okay, thank you very much. You'll have 5 minutes for rebuttal. Is the Registered Neighborhood Association here to testify? Thank you, Kate.
Thanks, Madam Chair. We do have some comments. So Kate Henwood, 1116 North 12th Street. First, just want to say it's really disconcerting to us that we've got these conflicting records about the status of this home. But I think that just speaks to the larger need, the desperate need for a resurvey of our historic district, but a longer conversation for another day and forum. So proceeding as if, taking staff in good faith, and their kind of rationale for why the home truly is not contributing. We do have a few comments. We had also reached out to the applicant and mentioned our concern about the rock. I think the idea was for it to mimic the retaining wall, which we just don't feel like that the rock in the drawings reflect that. So a change there, or maybe even just a stucco facade might be more appropriate. We also kind of were confused by the requirement for the sidewalks. I'm not even sure how you would do that there, since there are no other sidewalks, and it kind of feels like, you're on a road to nowhere if you're in the street and then hopping on the sidewalk for one house length and then hopping off again. So anyway, just wanted to mention we also were a little bit confused about that requirement and how that would be implemented. And then I think the final comment is just the general design of the house feels very busy. I think there's a lot of detailing in the windows, and then it looks like there are windows above the front door and next to the front door. I think that in combination with the retaining wall, it just really feels like there's a lot going on in the design of this home, and just feels a little bit busy, especially given the simplistic style of the other homes on the block. And I think that's all we had on this one.
Great, thank you very much. Is there anybody else wishing to testify tonight? Okay. All right, so the applicant, you have 5 minutes to come back up for your rebuttal.
Thank you very much. Just to address quickly the comments that the neighborhood association representative made. The rock, the comments about the rock on the lower portion of the house, I guess you would call it the wainscoting part. We don't intend to have the rock be that small as depicted in the drawing. Rather, the rock will be more akin to the size of the representative photo insert that's in the plans. I don't know, Josh, if you can bring that up. So there's a small photo to the upper left there. And so we don't propose to make the rock as small as what is drawn in the plans. So that's one clarification. And then I appreciate the representative's comment about the sidewalks because it would be kind of strange just to have sidewalk in front of that house. But again, we would work with ACHD to do whatever they would want if that was a requirement. And then her final comment was the design feels busy compared to the other homes on the block face. I would point out, however, that staff commented that the design of the home is representative of other homes in the district. And in a craftsman type style, it's in keeping with the massing of the houses on the block since it is a one-story home that's proposed. And also, I believe the design guidelines instruct the commissioners to look at not just the block, but also the actual neighborhood to see if it's representative of homes in the neighborhood as well. So with that, I will conclude my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I do have one question for you. I guess I was unclear. The sandstone retaining wall that's currently out front, is that going away or is that staying? You're proposing to have it stay and then?
That will stay. Yes.
Okay.
That would not go away.
Okay, so that would stay and then the new house would be up at that same elevation and kind of the same place. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions for the applicant actually before they sit down? Okay. Thank you. All right, I will now go ahead and close the public portion of the hearing and consider a motion or discussion.
Madam Chair, I think maybe the first thing I would like to see discussed, I have 2 items, but the first thing I want to have discussed is this the historic survey. And maybe Malloy can comment on that because if we have 2 different surveys, I need to know. So can we address, would it be okay if we address that first, Madam Chair?
Yes, yep, of course.
So I guess I'm disclosing I work for the State Historic Preservation Office and I have access to the records on file. So a lot of times I look at the records on file, and for some reason, when I looked at this application, I was wondering why this house was deemed non-contributing, and sometimes our database actually has additional information in it. And so I looked at it and it said it was contributing. The record was about 5 pages long, so slightly longer than the site form that's in the packet. And I'm not quite sure why the records don't match up. If you look at the house, it would be a contributing house if you surveyed it today. I figured the city is going to do what they normally do, and they say that they're not going to change a status mid-application. But this is disconcerting that there are separate records. So, I mean, I would encourage the city to do a records reconciliation and make sure everything is contributing, that is contributing, what is non-contributing is non-contributing. That's on file with the State Historic Preservation Office. I don't know. And like Nina said, new survey is always a thing we are talking about, because if this house is the single house that's on the block and it's contributing, maybe that block shouldn't be within the historic district. And these are things we need to consider. So that's my insight, Commissioner Koski, to the record, is that they don't match up. I don't know why they don't match up. So that's it.
Madam Chair and Commissioner Malloy and maybe Josh, I mean, this seems like a very significant issue. Like, two documents, that's two different things. Which one's legal? Which one's right? And maybe our council can comment. I don't know. It seems like kind of a big problem, unless I'm seeing it wrong.
Madam Chair, if I may, I actually have a really big issue moving forward with this application, with this conflicting information. We lose homes in our historic district every single time we have a hearing. And I'm just personally not comfortable supporting this application, knowing that there's potential that this home could be contributing based on records that have been found with the State Historic Preservation Office. And at this point, I'm not sure that I could vote to approve this application based on that.
I guess I have another comment is for the state, or not the state, for the city to have design review over its historic district, it has to have a contributing district per state law. It has to be an NRHP eligible district with contributing properties. So I don't really know how that affects the district, what's on file with the State Historic Preservation Office and what's on file with the city. I mean, if there's differing records, I think it needs reconciled.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion in light of the conflicting information in both the city and the state records for the survey, both having surveys stating different items. I would move that, shoot, what's the number? I would move for deferral of this application. DRH 22-00025.
No, that's right.
I would second that.
And Madam Chair, my discussion would be, we want to make sure we get this right. We have, due diligence has been done on behalf of the applicant, and we need to honor that applicant and do our due diligence on our end to hopefully get them to the point where they can move on with their project. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Koski. Did we have a second? Okay, Commissioner Otter was the second.
Oh, I seconded.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Is there any other discussion on the motion?
I guess I just want to add, I don't have an issue with the application. I suppose I just have an issue with the lack of confirmation of the contributing status. And I would just like to be 100% certain. Either way, I just want to have that on the record.
So we would like staff to come back with some more information on the status of this based on the two different reports.
Correct. And if, as Commissioner Malloy mentioned, that there was, I think she said a 5-page addition to the
form slugger, yes.
Correct. I would like to have that included in the application, whether or not it affects the status. I think it's just helpful for clarity.
Okay. Thank you. All right. We have a motion and a second. Christina, can you please call the roll?
Weaver,
Aye.
Montoto,
Aye.
Malloy,
Abstain.
was that abstain? Cape,
Aye.
Otter,
Aye.
Koski,
Aye.
5 in favor, 1 abstain. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, our last item on the list tonight that we will be hearing is item number 12, DRH 22-00026. Jeffrey Wallace at 1612 North 16th Street. Staff, can we please have the report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. DRH 22-00026 at 1612 North 16th Street is a request to construct a 2-story addition to an existing single-family home on property in R1CH zone. It is within the North End Historic District, and the classification is non-contributing. The subject property is located on 16th Street, just a block east of Harrison Boulevard. So the site plan, this property contains that existing primary residence at the front of the property, an existing detached garage at the rear of the property. The applicant has proposed to construct a substantial addition to the rear of the home that extends into the side yard on both sides of the existing home. I'll start with the front elevation. You can see the existing, and I don't think I'm sharing my screen. I'm sorry. Okay, that's probably helpful. Sorry. Okay, the site plan. Again, the primary residence with the detached garage at the rear of the property along the alley, the addition extending into both side yards behind the existing residence. There is a portion of the existing residence that will be removed for this proposed addition. So the elevations, the existing elevations on the south or on the bottom of the screen and the new elevations on the top of the screen. You can see in the existing front elevation and the proposed that the new addition extends both above the existing roof line and out on both sides of the home, drastically altering the massing and appearance of the existing home and kind of overwhelming the structure, kind of typifying the not appropriate illustrations in the section of the guidelines that talk about residential additions, addition to the rear of an existing home that overwhelms it. And then another view of the east elevation and the south elevation of the proposed addition. The existing house, again, non-contributing and surrounded by, in a different situation than previous hearings tonight, surrounded by smaller homes, a lot of minimal traditionals on the block surrounding this property. Based on that, we did find that the proposed addition does overwhelm and change the massing and character of the existing home. We have recommended denial of the application tonight. The applicant is here to discuss, and I would stand for any questions.
Okay, Thank you. Are there any questions for staff?
Madam Chair, I don't have any questions for staff, but I do want to note that I will be recusing myself from this item on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Koski. Okay, applicant, would you like to come forward and state your name and address for the record? And you have 20 minutes.
Members of the commission, this is Kirsten Wallace for Wallace Custom Design, 816 North Haines Street, Boise, Idaho, 83712. Thank you very much for considering our application. Staff mentions primarily that the existing or the proposed addition overwhelms the existing structure. However, I would point out that the existing house presented a difficult design challenge, primarily because we wish to, the homeowner wanted to keep the existing facade, but design an addition sufficient to accommodate a growing family. And the current square footage of the house and footprint makes it extremely difficult to do what staff is suggesting. So for example, the existing home is 24 feet wide on a 50-foot lot, and the side yards are equidistant from the sides of the home. Zoning allows for a 5-foot setback, so we have 40 feet to work with. Current side setbacks are each 13 feet. When we worked with the designer and the homeowner, there was no desire to build what would be called like a skinny home on the lot in order to, keep that front facade pristine. There wasn't a sufficient room on the lower level to really increase the square footage. There's only 830 square feet on that first floor, and there isn't very much in terms of basement that we could do to work with. All of these design challenges therefore lend themselves to either a side addition as proposed or demolition of the existing structure, which was not what the clients wanted. So my first comment then would be the criticism of the failure to do a setback of the addition from the primary facade to minimize impacts from the street. Well, that does not account for the design challenges we have with this site and the very small footprint we have of the existing home. And then second, other instances where Wallace Custom Design has designed side additions have been approved. I'm not sure if Josh can pull up the addition on 916 North 6th Street. There you go. So that, I understand that that is obviously a single story addition, but it is a side addition. You can see the front facade of the house, and the side addition is clearly visible from the street. And that was approved in DRH 19-00213. And then second, the field guide for American houses depicts gable, front, and wing family of homes. And so again, I don't have an exhibit for you for that, but that was referenced in the cover letter for this home. So side wings are not uncommon for historic properties. Third, the elevations are somewhat deceiving. As you all know, elevations are drawn in 2D, so it gives the effect that something is squashed against the front of the house when really it's much farther back. And the view from the proposed south elevation, I'm not sure, Josh, can you pull that up, please? Oh, that's a nice picture. So if you take a look at the side of the home, that south elevation there, what the plan shows is actually very congruous when you look at it from the side. So I think only focusing on the front of the home misses the point here with trying to design a congruous addition that mimics the pitch of the front roof height, and also have a nice view from the south elevation. So I understand from the design guidelines that the front elevation is often what is most focused upon, but here, with the proposed design, the whole home is actually a congruous whole with that view from the south. And symmetry is present with respect to the roof pitch, the windows, and all of those other elements to the new proposed addition. I can't answer very many questions about the roof pitch, but Paul Hoffman, the draftsman, is here to answer questions about why that pitch was chosen. My understanding, not being an architect, is that it was designed to allow enough head height in that second story addition, and that it would be very difficult to reduce that pitch. I would also mention that we did not receive feedback from Nina on this proposal, unlike the other proposal where we heard from the Nina representative. And my only other comment about the size of the home is if you take a look at the photographs in your packet, let's see. The home on the corner, it's a large yellow house. And I believe it's page, there it is, page 15. That's a large two-story structure right next door to the existing residence. So to say that all of the homes on this particular block are small, minimal traditional homes is somewhat misleading in light of the house on the corner. The only other thing is I think the applicant would be open to a deferral if the intent is to deny this application, so that we could work with staff on any recommendations for changing the design. So with that, I conclude.
Great. Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant or staff? Okay, is the Registered Neighborhood Association here to testify? Okay, go ahead, Kate, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kate Henwood, 1116 North 12th Street. And I'll start by letting the applicant know that you did not hear from us because we try and spend most of our time reaching out to folks where we might have an objection to something we're doing. But in this case, we support the proposed plan. We did do a site visit, and we didn't have any concerns between the lot size and the large existing setbacks. And the proposed still only 28% lot coverage. We were really happy with these plans. We actually think the existing home is recognizable within the new design, and we very much appreciate that they are not trying to build a skinny home or, as mentioned, that would have the option to completely demolish it. I also noticed that staff showed examples of smaller surrounding homes, but I saw that there were several large homes on the block, including the one referenced on the corner, which is extremely tall. There is actually a very unique, very small home that sits just south. It is just the lot right next door to this home. It's very small, I think less than 700 square feet, and it has a unique positioning on the lot. It's set very far back on the alley, which it is a contributing structure. So it should be preserved. And I think because of its unique location, it lends a feeling of openness. So I think which just kind of further accommodates the side addition of the home in question. So we were a little confused by staff's, I think, what feels like maybe overly restrictive conditions for a non-contributing home. So looking forward to hearing the commission's discussion on this one, but we support the application with the use of permeable paving for the new patio.
Thank you. Ms. Wallace, you may actually have a seat and you'll be able to come back up for a rebuttal. And we also have Jeffrey Wallace here on the side. That's you. Would you like to say anything? You signed up on the list here that I have. No. Okay. And then we also have Paul Hoffman. Are you here? Would you like to come up and testify?
Sure.
Thank you. You'll just state your name and address for the record and you'll have 3 minutes.
Paul Hoffman, 3235 Mountain View Drive, Boise. So in preparing plans for the home, well, let me back up a minute. As was pointed out, the adjacent house sits way back on the lot. In fact, when you're right up at the on the south elevation, you're basically looking at the schoolyard at the school. It's a couple lots over. And so it's quite wide open. In fact, when you approach up 16th Street, you really will see this entire south elevation. It's visible to you as you're approaching because of the large yard on the adjacent house. And so, the south elevation figures prominently in how you perceive the house. I did see the staff comments. Part of what I do is check in with the planners and see, okay, what do you think about this? Do you have any thoughts, any concerns? And they mentioned the height and the massing. And I tried to hold down the pitch of that center 2-story area as much as I could, but I've got it down to 7 feet where the roof trusses hit the wall. I can't go any lower and get doors through there. The pitch itself of the roof could be lower, but to me, that would look awkward. I'd rather match the existing pitch. And by doing so, and by presenting that 2-story where I did, it moves the massing of the house to the middle as opposed to side, which to me is more welcoming. I think it's better designed that way. So I'm a little fearful in a way about this idea of trying to work with staff to change the design and somehow bring the massing down, because I really don't think it's possible to meet the program, meaning, a new kitchen, dining area, and a bedroom on the lower level, plus get access to the upper level, a new stair. Because right now things are, as you might imagine, cramped, narrow stair, no bathroom upstairs, small living room. The kitchen, I guess it's serviceable, but that's the part of the house we'd like to take off. So there's a number of challenges, and it's going to be hard to try to reduce this without really taking away some important aspects of the house that you would consider standard for a home with a family. So anyway, and you may like to suggest that, and I can do my best. But I think the house presents well, and I'd hope you give that consideration. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to testify tonight that didn't sign up? Oh, yep. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Lars Lundberg, 1612 North 16th. Good evening. Thanks for considering our project. My wife and I live at in our rambunctious 1.5-year-old daughter. They're on Zoom, so they don't disrupt again. But the prior owner purchased the home with plans to demolish it and build a really modern home.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah.
having asked you to sit in front of the microphone.
The prior, sorry.
No, it's fine.
The prior owner purchased home with plans to demolish it and build a really modern home. The neighbors voiced opposition to those plans and he sold the home to me and my wife about 6 years ago. Since then, we've built excellent relationships with our neighbors. We love that the home is on Snow Alley. I don't know if you're familiar, but it's stands for slightly north of Washington Elementary. Our neighbors paved and upgraded the alley to make it a great place for parties, potlucks, and get-togethers in the community. It was upgraded before we bought our home. The prior owner refused to participate, presumably out of spite for the neighbors' opposition. Since purchasing our home, we've worked hard to make it our portion of the alley fit in. We paved our section of it to make it consistent. We added planters. And more recently, we helped fund a large alley mural on the back of our garage, which was painted by a local artist. In full candor, credit should go to my neighbor, Linda, who coordinated most of the project. You can see pictures of the project in our packet. We're proud of our neighborhood, our alley, and our home. However, since we bought the home, it's been in rough shape. It's not an ideal situation to accommodate a growing family. And because of that, we've always planned to do an addition. Both us and our neighbors prefer an addition as opposed to demolishing it like the prior owner wanted to do, so that we could preserve the facade and the style. It's been important to us to keep our neighbors in the loop on the plans. For years, we've talked with them about our general plans to add on, and we've kept them updated as we continue to save enough money to do this. In fact, we picked our contractor not only because of his track record of tasteful projects in the area, but also because he did our neighbor's house, their kitchen, and they highly recommended that we work with him. Even though our home is technically non-contributing, we've always promised our neighbors the additional fit in with this style. We've worked hard with Jeff to make sure that's the case. And after receiving his plans, we emailed them to all of our neighbors quickly, including the neighbors across the street, down the block, and across the alley. We asked them to let us know if we had any questions or concerns, because we wanted to address those concerns, if any, quickly and collaboratively. We didn't receive a single concern.
Madam Chair, I would request that we allow additional time.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Go ahead and
Thank you.
finish.
We only received positive feedback. I think their support is especially significant given their significant opposition to the prior plans. And let's see, we met with 5 other contractors. A few of them recommended and almost insisted that we demolish it if we're going to go with them. We didn't. We moved on and found Jeff, who could work to preserve the facade. And I think that's demonstrated, I believe, on page 12 of the packet. And for these reasons, unless you have any questions, my wife and I respectfully request that you approve the application. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. All right, is there anybody else that would like to testify tonight? Yeah, okay. Great. All right, the applicant, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal if you'd like to come up again.
Thank you very much for allowing me additional time. I guess I was surprised about Nina's representative's comments because they are so at odds with staff, but we respectfully request that you approve the application given the comments that you've heard this evening. And with that, I have nothing further.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant or staff? Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right, I will go ahead and close the public portion of the hearing and consider a motion or discussion.
I actually don't have any issues really with the house. I'm glad they're keeping the house and they're not sending it to the landfill. I do support Nina's permeable paving again. So if we do approve it, to include that as a condition for approval.
Thank you, Commissioner Malloy. Are there any other comments?
Madam Chair, I actually really think this is a beautiful design. I also live in a home built in 1895, and I can't stand the thought of any home built before 1900 being demolished, regardless if it's a contributing structure or not. And I am so touched that this application was done with such love and intention to preserve the front facade, when, you know, it really could have been a completely different situation. So I also would support Nina's request for permeable paving, but I am in support of this application as it stands.
Thank you. Commissioner Montoto, are there any other comments, or would someone like to make a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to approve DRH 22-00025, adding a condition of permeable paving.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Montoto. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Commissioner Malloy. Christina, can you please call the roll?
Weaver,
Aye.
Montoto,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Pape,
Aye.
Otter,
Aye.
motion carries.
Okay, great. Thank you. That was our last item, and that will conclude tonight's hearing. Thanks, everybody, for staying so long. I know being last is really hard on the agenda, so I appreciate it.